Okay, cool. Good morning, sir.
Good morning and welcome to today's New York Council meeting on transportation and infrastructure, jointly with Resiliency and Waterfronts and environmental protections. At this time, please silence all electronic devices and thank you for your cooperation. Chairs, we're ready to begin.
Good morning, and thank you for joining today's joint hearing of the Committees on Transportation and Infrastructure, Resiliency and Waterfronts, and Environmental Protection on the topic of sinkholes, flooding and heat waves, infrastructure challenges in the face of extreme weather. Today's hearing is about working towards a more safe, equitable, and resilient city. And along with my fellow committee chairs, I look forward to hearing from the city agencies that are in attendance today on the status of their efforts on this issue. The city has a long history of responding to the threat of extreme weather events, but looming climate change means that this challenge will only grow larger by the year. It is critical that we act now to ensure that proper measures are taken to build, protect, and repair the critical infrastructure that allows our city to function. Heat waves, flooding, and sinkholes are among the most significant tests we face in maintaining our physical infrastructure. Last month, in Councilmember Velasquez's district, we saw firsthand what can happen when our roads, sewers, and water lines are not well maintained, as a large sinkhole swallowed a van on a segment of street in Morris Park. This came on the heels of multiple high-profile sinkhole incidents in Manhattan last year. While sinkholes are just one manifestation of the danger we face with aging infrastructure, these recent events are a powerful reminder that we must take a proactive approach to maintaining our physical environment. It's important that we utilize every resource available to us in shoring up our city for the future ahead. As this committee has examined before, the city has a unique opportunity to access unprecedented federal funding dedicated to infrastructure. We can't let this chance go to waste. I hope today to learn more from our city agencies about the status of their efforts to access funds from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and how they plan to pursue any new funds that may be available through the recently enacted Inflation Reduction Act. We must also keep front of mind the reality that climate change, like many other issues our city faces, will not impact all New Yorkers equally. When flooding driven by extreme storms took lives across the city last year, many of the victims were low-income immigrant New Yorkers trapped in dangerous, illegal basement apartments in outer borough communities. As chair of this committee, I will continue to push our city's agencies to prioritize investing in our infrastructure as we endure climate change. I look forward to hearing from the administration about what they're doing on to address these challenges, and I look forward to working with them in any way that I can. We will next hear from my co-chairs that are here today, and later from advocates and members of the public that have joined us. We don't have time to waste in fortifying our infrastructure for the future, and we welcome all ideas for ways the city can improve in efforts to make New York a more resilient place. Now I will turn it over to my fellow co-chairs for their opening statements. First, Chair Kagan.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Ari Kagan, and I have the privilege and honor of chairing the Committee on Resiliency and Waterfronts. I want to thank my co-chairs, Majority Whip Brooks Powers and Council Member Gennaro, for holding this hearing. Coastal flooding and severe storms are becoming more intense and more severe. We are entering the peak months of Atlantic hurricane season, with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration still predicting a very active season. The city's infrastructure, including the more than 100 years old sewer system, is unable to handle the impacts of climate change, both what we are facing today and what we will see in the future. We must take a hard look at what we are doing to incorporate, prioritize, and incentivize various green and multi-benefit infrastructure techniques, including cloudburst technology, rainproofing for property owners, and restoring and creating wetlands. Last month, the administration announced that it will offer inflatable dams and sandbags to individual property owners as a tool for stopping flood waters from inundating their homes at a cost of about $2.5 million to the city of New York. New Yorkers need to be prepared. But is this really the right method, considering that even DAP Commissioner and Chief Climate Officer Reed Agarwala stated that the city could not guarantee it would be able to help elderly residents or those with mobility problems inflate and assemble these dams. Superstorm Sandy hit the New York City in 2012, 10 years ago. Tropical storm Isaias in 2020, and tropical storms Elsa, Henry, and Ida in 2021. We have had 10 years to think about extreme weather events that we know will continue to worsen. Why are we still concentrating on stopgap measures like inflatable dams and sandbags? We can and must do better for our city. I look forward to this hearing from the Department of Environmental Protection, the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice, the Department of Transportation, on steps the city is taking to be better prepared for the next climate disaster. Before we begin, I would like to thank my committee staff, Senior Committee Counsel Jessica Steinberg-Albin, Senior Policy Analyst Patrick Mulvihill, my Legislative Director Atir Termizi, as well as the staff of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and Environmental Protection Committee for all their hard work to prepare this hearing together. Now I would like to turn it back to my great co-chair, Majority Whip Brooks Powers.
Thank you, Chair Kagan. Next, we'll hear from Chair Gennaro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a privilege to be chairing a committee with, chairing a hearing with you and with my good colleague, Councilmember Kagan. I have a wonderful opening statement, which is kind of a reiteration of the two wonderful opening statements we've heard thus far. So I'm going to not do my opening statement, but take care of some important housekeeping by recognizing the good members that join us today. We're joined by Councilmember Nurse, a member of the Environmental Protection Committee, Councilmember Arreola, Velasquez, Carr, Marte, Hanks, also a member of the Committee on Environmental Protection, Narcisse, Councilmember Holden, also a member of the Committee on Environmental Protection, and Councilmembers Lewis, Farias, Palladino on Zoom, and Councilmember Ressler, also a member of the Committee on Environmental Protection. I'd like to thank my good staff sitting right next to me as the counsel to the committee, Samara Swanston, policy analyst Ricky Chawla, and my legislative director, Nabi Carr, for all of their hard work. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to the lead chair to call the first witness. I look forward to hearing from the DEP commissioner and the Chief Operating Officer with whom I've long worked, and I look forward from hearing the testimony of DOT as well. And with that, I turn it back to Majority Whip and Chair Sylvina Brooks Powers.
Thank you, Chair Gennaro. Next, we will hear from Councilmember Velasquez.
Good morning, and thank you, Chairs Brooke Powers, Gennaro, and Kagan for holding this very important joint hearing. A few weeks ago, an enormous sinkhole opened in my district, swallowing a passenger van and causing unthinkable damage to dozens of homes and businesses in the Morris Park community. It should have come as no surprise to anyone that this occurred when extreme weather and dilapidated infrastructure have become far too common, not just in my district, but across the city. After talking with affected residents in Morris Park, alongside OEM Commissioner Iskol, representatives from DEP, DOT, and the Red Cross and others, we found that homeowners have been experiencing consistent sewage and water backup in their homes since last fall, when Hurricane Ida wreaked havoc on our city. Literally around the corner from the sinkhole on Radcliffe Avenue, a small crater has already begun to form where another cave-in could possibly open due to severe weather conditions and inadequate and aging infrastructure. From meeting with the DEP commissioner, I've learned that many of the pipes that line the Morris Park community were installed in 1916. And when I see homeowners standing in several inches of water or more, it's clear that pipes have been barely touched since 1916 and can't handle the needs of a community in 2022. As our communities have grown, so should have our infrastructure. And as climate change has intensified flooding, we should have made improvements. And as leaders, we owe it to our communities to not waste any more time. As the city grows, our infrastructure also needs to keep pace and be made more resilient. The location where the sinkhole opened will soon be home to a highly anticipated and much needed Metro North expansion. This expansion will allow new stations and regular routes, increasing traffic and enhancing our residents' access to transportation. These new stations will be a great way to enhance transportation accessibility in my community, which has long been a transit desert. I'm excited about the opportunity this provides for the people and businesses of my district, but we must address the crumbling and overwhelmed infrastructure. Increasing the neighborhood's population without appropriately addressing the infrastructure is doing a disservice to our lifelong residents and those who have made the city their home. I'm passionate about these issues because the 13th district is also home to City Island, Edgewater Park, Silver Beach, and other coastal and low-lying areas that are in need of significant resiliency projects to protect us from climate change. It's expected that by 2030, flooding of 7.5 feet will occur roughly every 5 years. Without proper action, this will devastate my community. I'm encouraged that our federal partners have passed a $1 trillion infrastructure plan, and I'm hopeful that the city can work in productive ways to utilize this historic funding to make our communities more resilient. This is not a partisan issue. Everyone understands that our city needs an infusion of funding and immediate action to fix and to protect our city's future. It's past time we ensure this happens, invest in significant infrastructure projects, and improve the state of our city. Now we must work with our city, state, and federal partners to transform and revitalize our vibrant city. I will turn it now back to Chair Brooks Powers.
Thank you, Council Member. Next, I will pass it to the Council for the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, Elliott Lynn.
Thank you. I'm Elliott Lynn, Counsel to the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee of the New York City Council. Our first witnesses will be from the administration, Chief Climate Officer and Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection, Harit Agarwala, Department of Environmental Protection Chief Operating Officer Vincent Sapienza, Senior Program Manager for Infrastructure from the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice, Erica Joswiak, and from the Department of Transportation, Assistant Commissioner for Highway Inspection and Quality Assurance, Vincent Maniscalco, and Executive Director of Capital Program Planning, Leslie Wolf. I will now administer the oath. Please raise your right hands. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before these committees, and to respond honestly to councilmember questions? Thank you. You may begin when ready.
Thank you, and good morning, Chairs Brooks Powers, Chairman Gennaro, Chairman Kagan, and all the members of the three committees assembled here. My name is Rohit Agarwal. I am the Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection and the city's Chief Climate Officer, in which capacity I oversee the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today about the challenges our city's infrastructure faces from extreme weather events. I'd like to start with a story. The main contours of it you know, but I think the specifics are instructive, so I'll ask you to bear with me. Hurricane Henri arrived in New York on August 21st, 2021. Henri set a record for the most intense rain event in the city's recorded history, at 1.94 inches of rain between 11 and 12 p.m. Previously, the most intense rainstorm had been 1.76 inches per hour in 2004. Prior to that, the record had been 1.58 inches per hour in 1967. The records for hourly rainfall go back to 1943. Of course, as with all storms, but particularly the most violent, intense ones, rainfall was not uniform across the city. New York sewers are not designed to handle 1.94 inches of rain in 1 hour. It had never been necessary. Prior to the 1970s, in fact, sewer standards were set by each borough president, which is one reason that unfortunately some parts of the city, especially Queens, have many sewers that are designed for only 1.5 inches of rain. Today, our standard is 1.75 inches per hour, which we are, as you might imagine, reevaluating. When that amount of rain occurs, more water is attempting to enter the sewer than can fit inside of it. This increases the pressure on the sewer walls. A rain event like Henri is, quite literally, a pressure test of the system. And what a pressure test does is find weaknesses and turn them into leaks. Underneath Radcliffe Avenue, the pressure test of Henri was likely having its first impact. Back in 1916, the Bronx Borough president had embraced a new technology for sewer construction called interlocking vitrified block. The sewer under Radcliffe Avenue was constructed of this material. The sewer had done its job well for more than 100 years. But in retrospect, it seems likely that this particular design begins to get weakened when it is pressurized and when water reaches the top of the sewer, which, as you might imagine, it almost never does. As we all know, only a few days later, Hurricane Ida shattered Henri's record, with 3.15 inches of rain falling in Central Park between 9 and 10 p.m., and its most intense up to 3.75 inches in 1 hour in several parts of the city least able to handle it, especially the Bronx and Queens. Of course, the greatest impact of Ida was that 13 New Yorkers lost their lives. But for our sewer infrastructure, it was yet another pressure test, with even greater levels of pressure than Henri had used. During and the morning after Ida, of course, we saw the visible impacts of climate change on our infrastructure. Roads flooded, subways flooded, equipment and possessions destroyed. In our sewers, we began to see the impact of those two pressure tests. DEP reports sinkholes in the mayor's management report. From fiscal year 2018 to 21, the number of sinkholes, which by the way includes everything from a mild depression in the roadway to what we saw on Radcliffe Avenue, had been declining from 3,769 in 18 to 2,839 in 21. In fiscal year 22, that number shot up to 3,920. One of those was on Radcliffe Avenue. Weakened by the pressure tests of the two storms, the roof of the sewer had failed, and soil from above was seeping in and being washed away. Over time, the failure expanded to the point that a large amount of soil from above was falling in. The pressure of that falling soil, of course, widened the hole in the roof of the sewer. DEP received a call that there was a street cave-in at 1640 Radcliffe Avenue. DEP responded quickly alongside other city agencies, and happily, no one was injured. DEP's response was appropriate. The collapsed length of the sewer was repaired with 152 linear feet of reinforced concrete pipe. On either side of the pipe, the sewer was inspected. There was no visible weakening to the sewer on either side. This summer, of course, the rains came again, providing another pair of pressure tests to this sewer in the Bronx. On July 16th, 2022, Morris Park experienced a storm which had a maximum rate of 1.88 inches per hour in 1 hour. Then on the morning of July 18th, another storm had a maximum of 1.64 inches. This July 18 storm highlights just how widely rainfall can vary across the city. Central Park received only a total of 1.01 inches of rain, but the Fordham Weather Station in the Bronx recorded a total of 3.35 inches across the night. These two pressure tests found and expanded another weakness in the interlocking vitrified block sewer just down the street. DEP received notice from the fire department about a street collapse at about 4 p.m. that day at 1613 Radcliffe Avenue. It seems that someone had called it into 911 rather than 311, in which case it would have gone first to the Department of Transportation. A DEP crew was on site in less than an hour and was quickly accompanied by Con Edison, DOT, NYCM, FDNY, and NYPD. The reality is that once a cave-in is underway, there is little that can be done to stop it except shut off the flow of water and wait. DEP engineers had sent a television scope down through a nearby manhole to see what was going on and realized that the sinkhole was going to get bigger before it stopped. While DEP cleared and secured the area, NYPD tow trucks moved cars away from the site, except, of course, for one unfortunate white van that was too close to the edge to reach safely. Ultimately, the sinkhole grew to 15 feet wide by 58 feet long by 20 feet deep. The void also undermined a water main, and so water service to nearby homes was off for several hours until a repair was made. As we do whenever there is a major water break, DEP established 2 water-on-the-go stations to provide water to local residents while their water was out. Water was restored within a few hours. All the volume of soil from the sinkhole entered into the broken sewer, thereby blocking much of the normal wastewater flow. To avoid a major backup of sewage into homes, DEP staff quickly deployed large pumps to convey sewage around the broken pipe. Over the course of the next 5 days, DEP staff and its contractors began removing soil from the sewer, which had been carried more than 200 feet downstream by the flow of sewage. Crews worked around the clock. Unfortunately, while that work was ongoing, a cloudburst on July 21st, with a maximum intensity of 1.6 inches per hour, generated runoff that exceeded the combined capacity of the partially blocked sewer and the pumps that DEP had installed. Several homes on the block got water in their basements. DEP staff handed out claim forms to homeowners so that they can apply for compensation for damages. We prioritized getting our engineering report to the controller's office, which has now been delivered, so that the controller should now be able to process those claims. DEP ultimately replaced another 157 feet of sewer that was impacted by the break and the cleanout. The story of the Radcliffe Avenue sinkhole demonstrates a number of key points about the intersection of climate change and infrastructure. The first is that the impacts we are dealing with are exactly what has long been predicted. In 2000, the first report by NASA's Goddard Center described the likely effects of climate change on New York City. These were repeated, I can assure you, in Mayor Bloomberg's Plan YC in 2006. We knew then what was coming. More intense storms like Ida, more hurricanes like Sandy, more heat waves like the ones we have experienced all summer and elsewhere, drought like the 100-year drought Europe is enduring and the 1,000-year drought that is drying up the Colorado River. Recently New York State declared a drought watch for all of New York State outside of New York City and Westchester County. Thankfully, our massive reservoir system provides us greater ability to withstand dry periods like this summer, which despite some violent short storms is well below average rainfall. But it is entirely likely that at some point in the coming years and decades, that New York City will face a serious drought, and that likelihood is, of course, much greater as a result of climate change. All of this we knew was coming. Of course, when you're in a hole, the first thing to do is stop digging, which is why it is so important that we reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. As you know, that is a priority of the Adams administration, and we are working hard to implement Local Law 97 and congestion pricing, expand electric vehicles, undertake new projects such as NYCHA's recently announced heat pump initiative, the Department of Sanitation's recent announcement about universal organics collection in Queens, and the Department of City Planning's zero carbon zoning initiative. And we are working hard to adapt to climate change using a multi-layered approach. This means we are focused on establishing multiple layers of resilience at different scales across the city to respond to multiple hazards. As we have seen, all these layers of support, such as green infrastructure, grid redundancy, coastal protection projects, emergency communication, building code and zoning resolution amendments, and flood insurance are critical components of this system. And our work to develop and strengthen our infrastructure in response to climate change must move forward with urgency, funding, and partnership with government and individuals. We will do all this with a fierce commitment to environmental justice and prioritizing the most vulnerable communities. I'll highlight 2 programs at my agencies. At DEP, we have invested dramatically in green infrastructure to help keep rainwater out of our sewers. With 11,000 rain gardens around the city, a network of ponds that capture stormwater called blue belts, and a new regulation that requires private developers to design their property to retain more stormwater on site through porous pavement, green or blue roofs, or other approaches. With MOCEJ in the lead, the city has also issued climate resiliency design guidelines, updated this past May, to ensure that new public infrastructure can withstand the more extreme flooding and other weather events that we expect in the future. Anytime the city builds a library, school, pump station, bridge, and more, it should be designed with changing future conditions in mind. I'll move on by reiterating that extreme heat, not water, is the deadliest climate hazard in New York City, as well as in the United States. Each summer, an estimated 370 New Yorkers die prematurely because of heat exposure. The lack of access to affordable home air conditioning is a significant risk factor. The impacts of extreme heat are not felt equally. Black, low-income New Yorkers face the greatest risk to extreme heat because of social and economic disparities. Since 2017, the city has invested over $100 million towards cool neighborhoods, resulting in over 11,700 trees being planted in the most heat-vulnerable neighborhoods, more than 11 million square feet of cool rooftops being installed, and the launch of 2 programs aimed at strengthening community resilience through partnerships with community-based organizations and health workers. The second thing Radcliffe Avenue demonstrates is that there are still going to be climate change impacts that take us by surprise. The sinkhole on Radcliffe Avenue would not have been easy to predict, given what we know and the tools we currently have. That sewer's particular combination of materials and design was not appropriate to a world in which the sewer would be full and pressurized on a regular basis, which is what the last 12 months many extreme storms have done. As a result, DEP now is planning to rebuild that entire stretch of sewer, 3,300 feet of it, by lining it with new cured-in-place materials. That essentially means we'll be putting a new liner inside the existing sewer to make it stronger. Work will begin in a few months on the new line. We're also going to be looking through our records, thousands of as-built drawings, to identify where there are other locations where the same design was used and which can reasonably be expected to be weakened at will. At the moment, happily, we don't think this design was used very long, and we haven't found another location that has it. We have certainly been thinking about how we might have predicted that this particular sewer design would fail. Generally speaking, sinkholes, like water main breaks, occur fairly randomly, so they are, in fact, hard to predict. Only when we start to see a pattern can we make predictions. Now we know that we have one type of sewer that was weak, and we may be able to consider what indicators might tell us in advance that we have further risk. It's also important to note that the sewer did not fail because it is old. We rely on lots of old infrastructure. The Brooklyn Bridge is nearly 140 years old, and we don't think that we need to replace it. Sewers particularly are very long-lived assets. The city of Rome still has a few in service that are more than 2,000 years old. There are lots of other sewers, many much older than Radcliffe Avenues, that we expect are going to have no structural issues whatsoever under our new normal conditions. Age is not a good indicator of risk. Finding the weak spots, identifying where climate change causes the most acute risks to our infrastructure will require learning, and only some of it can be predicted well in advance. We saw this also during Hurricane Sandy. While the flooding was predicted, the regional impacts on gasoline supplies was not. No one had noticed that refineries are all coastal, so that when a coastal storm happens, all of the refineries are out of service at once. 2020 hindsight says it's obvious. It was obvious to no one before Hurricane Sandy. And of course, since Sandy, we've done a lot more planning around climate change and supply chains. But it was a surprise lesson, just as Radcliffe Avenue was. The third thing Radcliffe Avenue reminds us is that we will not be able to change our infrastructure as fast as the climate is changing. Adjusting to our new climate will take time, lots of money, difficult trade-offs, and potential controversy. We are going to have to give up things that we like. We will have to put up with inconvenience. While it won't be easy, these projects are necessary to ensure that our children and grandchildren can enjoy the gifts of living in New York City. Making these investments is a delicate process that will require all hands on deck and a shared understanding of the challenges we face. We are working hard to speed up the city's ability to change our infrastructure. First Deputy Mayor Lorraine Grillo has, as you know, an interagency project underway to streamline project delivery. At DEP, I have initiated an internal effort to identify and correct what slows our contracting and procurement processes. But the reality is that heavy construction takes time, and public engagement takes time, and sound planning takes time. So even if we operated under pandemic-like emergency procedures, it would still take a long time to change our infrastructure. And it will cost money. Infrastructure is expensive. We will look forward to partnering with the City Council to ensure New York City receives its fair share of funds from the federal government and from the state. However, we should remember that New York City pays for the vast majority of its own infrastructure investments. For water and sewer infrastructure, that is the water rate. Whatever level of protection we want, we must be willing to pay for. Finally, The failures on Radcliffe Avenue are a reminder that our new climate will require that New Yorkers play a role individually. For centuries, New York City has enjoyed a very mild climate. Aside from a few hurricanes and some blizzards, New York does not have a history of earthquakes and wildfires like the West Coast, tornadoes like the Midwest, or mudslides and hurricanes that affect the Southeast and the Caribbean. New Yorkers generally assume that our infrastructure will work regardless of the weather. Our new climate is not so generous. Extreme storms like Ida gain intensity quickly. We often can't predict a cloudburst even an hour in advance. And because we cannot change our infrastructure as quickly as the climate is changing, New Yorkers cannot be as confident as before that our infrastructure will function as reliably as we expect in extreme conditions. We need New Yorkers to take steps to protect themselves. Pay attention to weather reports. Plan to protect your property. Don't take risks like going out in a violent storm. Don't put others in danger. If you don't think it's safe to be outside, don't decide that it's safe for a deliverista to be outside. Don't keep valuables in your basement. Get flood insurance. Since Ida, the city has taken a number of steps to help New Yorkers protect themselves in these new conditions. Our colleagues at NYCM have enhanced our Notify NYC system to let people know when cloudbursts are coming. Notifications are available in 14 languages, and messaging has been updated since Ida to focus on those living in basement apartments to alert them to move to higher ground when flash flooding is likely. More than 1 million New Yorkers are signed up, but we know we are not thoroughly reaching all communities in the city, especially those least connected to government. We are working with organizations that are trusted by those committees to see how they can relay messages of warning. Similarly, we recently launched Rainfall Ready, an effort that is very much short-term. I have described it as a Band-Aid, but is designed to help New Yorkers prevent death and reduce destruction from flooding. DEP issued a new map available online that identifies those properties around the city that we believe to be most susceptible to flooding. For the absolutely most susceptible properties, DEP has been offering inflatable water barriers to protect their properties. This is not a long-term solution. This requires the homeowner to fill them up and install them, take them down, and store them after a rain event. But it's the kind of thing that both raises awareness and could reduce damage. We started our giveaway program just this past weekend. I'll close here. There is so much that I could discuss. DEP's new data-driven approach to scheduled catch basin cleaning, the FloodNet sensor program, the potential for funding from the bipartisan infrastructure law and the potential New York State Environmental Bond Act. DEP is beginning to model how climate change will impact our water supply. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers just released their preferred option for how to protect all of New York Harbor from coastal inundation. Every week, I convene the climate leads from more than 15 agencies to update each other on progress and provide assistance. There is a lot we are doing. I want to thank the Council again for the opportunity to speak today and for your attention to this critical issue. The challenges that climate change is bringing cannot be avoided, but I am confident that we can get through them if we work together and do so wisely and thoughtfully, but with the urgency that this climate emergency requires. That is where I am particularly hopeful with this Council. We will be looking to you to help advocate for this work in your communities, using your influence to lead your communities when we must accept change, sacrifice, and inconvenience necessary to protect ourselves and our children. I appreciate the Council's ongoing partnership in all that we do, and I look forward to continuing to work with you on this critical issue. My colleagues and I are happy to answer any questions that you have, and I now turn it over to my colleague at DOT, who will read his testimony.
Good morning, chairs and members of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, Resiliency and Waterfronts, and Environmental Protection. I am Vincent Maniscalco, Assistant Commissioner for Highway Inspection and Quality Assurance at the New York City DOT. I am joined today by Leslie Wolf, Executive Director of Capital Program Planning. We're happy to join our colleagues on behalf of Commissioner Rodriguez to discuss the topics of sinkholes as well as the infrastructure challenges posed by extreme weather. First, starting with sinkholes. Since 2009, all 311 sinkhole complaints are initially routed to DOT, and the DOT staff have provided training to 311 operators in telling the differences between a cave-in, pothole, street excavation, depression, or other street defect. A DOT inspector makes the initial inspection to assess the complaint is truly a cave-in or a sinkhole, in which case we refer to DEP, a utility, or another responsible party to further investigate and correct the issue that is causing the cave-in while making the site safe for the public in the meantime. Cave-ins are caused when a void develops under the pavement, almost always caused by a water leak somewhere on the ground. Identifying and addressing the cause of cave-ins is crucial. While we understand this delay can be frustrating, repairs that do not address the root cause will quickly deteriorate and may even make the situation worse by adding more weight to the road. Let me be clear, DOT is the owner of our streets. We maintain and repair the pavement, and we have the responsibility, which we take very seriously, for ensuring that everyone who has a facility under the road, from pipes to sewers to conduits to vaults and to building connection, is taking care of it appropriately. Our 170 inspectors are hard at work around the clock, performing inspections, issuing corrective action requests, and enforcing the requirements of our permits, including the requirement to fully restore the roadway whenever an excavation has been performed. Starting in 2014, after the tragic Park Avenue gas explosion in Harlem, we worked with DEP, Con Edison, and National Grid to establish a working group that meets monthly to review priority cave-in locations that may pose a risk to a gas line. As one part of this group's work, DEP and DOT takes turns in repairing any defect for which a clear, responsible party cannot be identified, to make sure that the needed repairs are done as quickly as possible. When it comes to resiliency and preparing our infrastructure for the future of more extreme weather in the face of climate change, our agency testified in detail back in April on our ongoing efforts, and that information is included again in my written testimony. Our streets and bridges are crucial to the economic vitality and mobility and the quality of life for city residents, and the DOT is committed to doing our part to prepare them for the future for more extreme weather, particularly for our underserved communities. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and we will now be happy to answer any questions along with our DEP colleagues.
Thank you for the testimony from both of the agencies. I do ask that in the future that we receive the testimony with a bit more lead time so that the members on the committees are able to really read and digest the information that's being shared with us. So let's get into it. Can you explain to us the difference between a pothole, a street cave-in, and a sinkhole?
Well, cave-ins and sinkholes are one and the same. It's when there's a break in the street. You will see a hole, and you could actually, it's very deep, and you can't see the bottom. Unlike a pothole, it's jagged edges. You can see the form, and actually has a bottom. We also have depressions, and depressions are when you see a dip in the road when there's no break in the road yet. That's usually a beginning stage of what will turn into a cave-in if it continues to sink. And then, of course, we have the street excavations, and those are the street cuts you see usually done by Con Edison and plumbers. Those have a shape. They're either square or rectangular, and those also sometimes are defective, where our inspectors would notify the responsible party.
Thank you. And it is our understanding that the potholes fall under the jurisdiction of DOT, but that the street cave-ins and sinkholes fall under the jurisdiction of DEP. Are the roles that the two agencies have in investigating and making repairs to either a pothole or a street cave-in established pursuant to law, rule, or internal policy?
So for the first part, potholes, yes, that is the jurisdiction of DOT, and we do repair potholes aggressively all year long. Cave-ins do go to DEP, but in 2009, because of the response time, it was decided that DOT would triage cave-ins in order to clearly identify if it's truly a cave-in. A lot of times the citizens will call up and say, it's a cave-in, but it turned out to be a pothole, or it's a cave-in and it turned out to be a street cut. These complaints were going to DEP first, and that was time-consuming for their crews to go to these locations only to find that it's someone else's responsibility. So in 2009, DOT, my inspection crew, was called in to get these complaints first and to go out and identify if it's a true cave-in, a pothole, or a street cut. If it's a cave-in, then we issue what's called a corrective action request, and we send it to DEP, whereby they will now send a crew to do the test and to see what's the underlying condition.
So it sounds like it's policy.
Yes.
Okay. Complaints about street cave-ins have increased this year, even though DEP has increased its response times. Do you believe the increase in complaints is attributable to the number of roads exceeding their useful lifetimes?
We started to see the increase after the pandemic. The number of complaints, 311 complaints, were pretty steady since we started in 2009, 7 to 9,000. It didn't really, it dropped when the pandemic, less people in the street, less people complaining. But then once people started walking around, looking around, and then that's when we started to see the increase. And right now it's around a little less than 8,000 311 complaints that come in for cave-in conditions.
Okay. The city's underground infrastructure, such as the water and sewer mains, are old and fragile, with reports indicating that the average age of the city's water main is 66 years old. And I do understand and want to acknowledge that it was stated that old does not necessarily mean bad, but we do know the absence of maintenance could attribute to that. But I'd like to understand, are the needed repairs to these types of underground infrastructure eligible for funding through the federal government's IIJA? And if so, has the city applied for any of these funds, and how much was the ask for?
So I'll start, and Vinny, if you have anything to add. So first of all, I'll say the administration is very focused on ensuring that we get our fair share of funding from the IIJA and from all of the other sources of money at the state and federal level. And in fact, Deputy Mayor of Operations Meera Joshi convenes a weekly meeting with senior members of several city agencies that are relevant. Every opportunity is identified. There's a lot of work that goes into that. We believe that there is money for water infrastructure specified. It will be going through EPA, and eventually we believe it will go through the state. However, EPA has not yet written the guidance to the states for that money, and therefore, frankly, we don't yet quite know how much to expect or what we think will qualify for it. But we are keeping a close eye on that. The first tranche of money that will go through the EPA from IIJA is the lead service line funding. The state did receive the guidance on that earlier this year. The state has started a preliminary request for applications, and DEP is certainly going to be applying by the deadline of August 31st. However, we have been informed that it's probably not until the spring that final decisions are made at the state level and money is dispersed.
Yeah, I just want to add that what we're hearing at the federal level is that some of the disbursements are going to be needs-based. And one of the issues that we run into is when we say in New York City we only have 6 water main breaks per 100 miles of mains per year, and nationally it's 25, we often lose out in that prioritization.
Thank you for that. It's good to have to take account for. Do you have an inventory of the city's underground infrastructure, and do you know the current state of repair for all underground infrastructure throughout the city?
Madam Chair, DEP has an inventory of its water and sewer infrastructure, where valves are, where manholes are, catch basins, regulators. We don't have an inventory of other utility assets, though.
I'm sorry, you said you do not?
We do not for other utilities.
Okay. And the assets that you do have inventory for, can this be made available, this information?
We can certainly look to see, how we could make that available.
But I will just hasten to point out, Council Member, that as you would imagine, some of that information is very closely held because there are security concerns with letting the general public know exactly where all of our water infrastructure is. So we cautiously guard it. But if there are specific questions that would help you evaluate the way we are maintaining it, of course, we'd be very happy to do what we can to share any information that we have.
And just to clarify, it was less about the location, more about the conditions that we're looking to get information on.
And I think one good indication, Madam Chair, is to look at our 10-year capital plan where we have, literally hundreds of projects for water mains and sewers. Those are basically the locations that we've identified as needing replacement. So I think that's a good place to start.
Are there any funding streams available in the recently enacted Inflation Reduction Act that can be accessed to pay for infrastructure improvements as well?
From what I know, the bulk of the funding in the Inflation Reduction Act is actually more on the climate mitigation side, but of course we will pay close attention to that as it gets closer. As I suggested, these funding streams take a while, so frankly we're very much focused right now on our lead service line application and getting the money that's nearer term. As well, by the way, I didn't mention the CDBG money, that there was a significant portion of IIJ money that is allocated to communities by formula, and that is something that the city is aggressively doing. And there will be, I don't know if there's going to be sewer money, but there's certainly green infrastructure resilience money that we will be getting as a result of that.
What's that formula and who establishes it?
I would probably need to call on a colleague from HPD since the Community Development Block Grant Program is an old program. It's decades old at the federal government. It establishes a formula. I fear I do not know the details on the formula, but it is a direct municipality funding stream.
Thank you. What percentage of street cave-ins are caused by water main breaks, and what percentage of street cave-ins are caused by changes to natural water drainage patterns?
So, as our colleague testified, most of the time when there's a street cave-in or a sinkhole, it's water-related. So it could be a water main or a sewer, as happened on Radcliffe Avenue. And I should mention it's DEP infrastructure, water and sewer, or private water and sewer infrastructure. There are more than 1 million connections from homes to the water mains and another 1 million connections from homes to the sewer system. And either of those can cause cave-ins. 45% of cave-ins are caused by New York City DEP infrastructure, either water mains or sewers. Again, there's another tranche that are from private services or poor backfills from plumbers after they make a repair. And 23% we call undetermined, which generally can be a result of natural water drainage that undermines soils.
Thank you. In fiscal year 21, more than 26% of the city's roadways were in poor or fair condition. What is the plan to address these roads, and how is DOT ensuring that these roadways are being repaired and improved upon in order to lower this number? What underground structure also impacts these roadway conditions?
DOT is responsible for the resurfacing, and we have increased our lane mileage of the number of lane miles we're resurfacing. I believe it's between 12 to 1,500 lane miles, which will improve the conditions of the road. As far as underground facilities, that's mostly the DEP, but whenever a private contractor does dig up a street, our inspectors will go out to ensure that the restoration is done according to our specification, so to prolong the life of the street.
No, and I'd like to at some point get a report out in terms of the locations where we're seeing this also, because, for example, in terms of resurfacing rather and how it's being prioritized, because I will say even in Rockaway, we continue to reach out to DOT for resurfacing in certain areas, and it's continued to be prolonged. A couple of years ago, we even had like a water main break that a lot of my neighbors, including my husband, lost our car as a result. And unfortunately, there is such a cumbersome process to make residents go in circles until their time has run out and they never get compensated from it. Even my husband, he talks about it to this day, never got compensated and lost a brand new car as a result of a water main break in the street. That was the city's responsibility. And, you know, when you have residents reaching out about repaving the surface, that continues to get prolonged. So I'm interested in terms of how these type of requests are handled and broken down by district and communities to see what that looks like.
Well, we could provide, and don't have it here, but I could get you the information as far as our resurfacing schedule. Now, on the other part, as far as water main breaks, my colleagues will correct me if I'm wrong. If a water main break does occur, DEP has an emergency contractor, whether it's water or sewer, and they will be responsible not only to repair the pipe, but also to restore the street back to its original condition.
Thank you. And then in terms of the sinkholes, how many, just staying in line with that, how many occur in New York City per year?
Well, based on 311, we get like 7 to 8,000 cave-in complaints, of which 80% are confirmed to be cave-ins. Actually 90%. The other 10% belong to other entities. Now, cave-ins, it's not the exact number. The reason is these are the number of complaints, and we do have duplicates. You know, a cave-in could be called in by multiple citizens, so the number is a little skewed that as far as how many are actually out there. We do issue 6 to 7 corrective action requests. These are notices that our inspectors issued after confirming that it's a cave-in to DEP to go out and to do their investigation.
But do you guys reconcile that number to have a solid understanding of how many are actually truly sinkholes?
We try, but like I said, a lot of these are duplicates, and in order to determine, you know, how many are actually out there, we would actually have to do joint inspections and see if this is the same cave-in that was called in by the citizen, and if the inspector picked up was picked up more than once.
And are there any streets in the city that are more vulnerable to sinkholes than others, or where there are reoccurring problems? And if so, what are those areas?
I believe my colleague said cave-ins are random. They could happen anywhere at any time. We just can't pinpoint that this location is more vulnerable to a cave-in than another location. We've seen brand new streets develop cave-ins, and we've seen older streets that have no cave-ins at all. It all depends on what's happening underneath.
Do the agencies feel they have sufficient capital funding or in order to address these cave-ins and sinkholes and sinkholes and cave-ins?
Well, I'll take that. Councilmember, I think, first of all, DEP has a significant capital budget, right? We have a roughly $25 billion 10-year capital plan. It's a lot of money. It does come out of the pockets of New York City's water ratepayers, so we pay for it. We get some support from the federal and state, but it's very, very small in comparison to the investment that our ratepayers make. Right now, I would say, when it comes to sewer maintenance, and Vinny, maybe you could look up, I don't have the exact number in my head, but we have a pretty aggressive program. And as I said in my testimony, I think the issue right now is we don't know exactly what we would do with more money that would systematically reduce the likelihood of sinkholes, right? And I think this is the point that if something is random, you could fix whatever you want, and it may not have any impact on the number that you are looking to affect.
But you also mentioned that in your testimony that when you see an indentation in a road, that sometimes that's a sign of what's to come. And so when we see those signs, like how will we, addressing it and being proactive instead of reactionary?
Well, Councilmember, I think that's a good question. And, we have seen that DEP's response time for these events on average. I think we've performed very well at Radcliffe Avenue, but on average, we have, in fiscal year 22, our response time has gone down, which I think is fairly predictable in response to the fact that the total numbers have gone up. And frankly, our averages are significantly affected by our performance back in September and October when, as you might imagine, DEP's crews were scrambling to deal with the post-Ida damage. I think one of the things we will be looking at, particularly with the experience of Radcliffe Avenue, I'd say it's two things. One is we will take another look at the data to see whether there are underlying patterns that would lead us to see non-random things that could lead to a fix. And we'll also make sure that we are as aggressive as we can be in spotting problems, as my colleague from DOT points out, where, and as you suggest, Council Member, that a depression is an early warning sign so that we are not waiting until there is an actual cave-in. Oh, yeah, and my colleague points out that we have $2.3 billion over the next 4 years slated in the budget for sewer infrastructure. So it is a sizable number.
Thank you. Sorry. Are options like water absorbent asphalt something that's being considered, and have we entertained using this as an option?
Yes.
Councilman, Leslie Wolf from DOT would be glad to answer that question on some of the other products.
Thank you for your question. DOT, in consultation with our partners at DEP, are actively installing and studying permeable pavement. Currently at DOT, we have a permeable pavement pilot program in which we are testing out different materials, different porous materials, and evaluating their impacts and how they could possibly be used moving forward to deal with storm water management. We're also working very actively with DEP in putting in precast porous pavers throughout the city. And that is something that has been, that's in compliance with the Uniform Stormwater Rule, in which we have to look at reducing impervious pavement in order to deal with stormwater management. So we're doing that throughout the street reconstruction program. Like I said, working with our partners at DEP on siting and putting those things into our capital work.
Thank you. In New York City, the building owner builds the sewer connection line and water connection line to their building or home. These lines are part of their property, and thus the owners are responsible for the maintenance and repair, as are the owners to which their building or home is sold. What type of outreach is being done to ensure that building owners understand their responsibilities in terms of the sewer connection line and water connection line?
So each of those property owners will receive a water bill, and we, almost in every quarterly bill that gets sent, will have some kind of an informational mailer in there. And we have, certainly notified homeowners that it's their responsibility for their private connections. There is, and this is another thing that, again, in our informational mailers, we suggest that property owners look at insurance. There are companies out there that will insure their water and sewer service lines, generally for $15 to $20 a month. We know that more than 200,000 property owners have signed up for some sort of insurance. So that's a recommendation.
I will say that both in my district and Councilmember Williams's district, we've been having some issues around that lately. So I definitely look to the agency to be able to be a bit more aggressive with the education with homeowners on that piece as well. And in line with the same questioning, what resources are currently available in New York City and New York State to aid owners who may not have the necessary funding or resources to maintain and or repair sewer and water systems?
Do you want to take that? My colleague Mario.
Yeah, this is an important one. I literally just had a constituent case that we're dealing with on that right now.
HPD and the nonprofit NHS both have low-cost loan programs, and we work closely with those two groups. We do housing fairs with both of them, and we always refer people who need help with the funding to them.
Could you describe the process of applying and receiving an HPD home repair and preservation financing loan and the NHS homeowner loan?
Council member, I apologize. We don't have HPD here at this hearing today. I'm sure we'd be very happy to connect you.
Is there any coordination though with the agency around this?
There's some, but the reality is when it comes to HPD administered loans, that is really about the homeowner and the property, and that is something we defer to our colleagues at HPD about.
I would think that there should be not really a silo in that space, because considering it's impacting the infrastructure that could impact an entire block or community, there should be more coordination around that. So I would imagine you don't know how much money is available each year for homeowners through these programs either.
I do not know.
Okay, so we'll follow up with HPD on that. Okay, I'm gonna have to skip the next few questions because you guys don't know about this program, but again, I think that that's a significant gap right there in communication between the agencies. How has your agency been strategizing about which neighborhoods to invest in and when, and is Adapt NYC going to do that?
I can see if my colleague from MOCEJ would like to speak about Adapt NYC, but I'll start from the DEP perspective. We prioritize areas where we have known issues with the sewers. As you know, there are a number of neighborhoods around the city that actually have no storm sewers at all. And then there are areas where we know of recurring problems over the years. And so that is how we really prioritize. Our crews know the city very well. They know where the problems are. We rely in part on 311 data and the source of complaints, and that is how we fashion our capital investment plans. One thing I will point out is, particularly in the aftermath of Ida, our Bureau of Water and Sewer Operations has undertaken a significant effort to do drainage plans for a number of neighborhoods around the city that were particularly hard hit. That work is ongoing. It has led to a number of commitments around sewer investment, some of which were reflected in the New Normal report that was released last November, some of which are going to be reflected in our capital plan come this year. And Erica, would you like to respond on Adapt NY?
Sure. Thank you so much for the question. As you may be familiar, we have a $20 billion resiliency portfolio that we take a multi-hazard approach, looking across all areas of the city and across all different climate hazards. We will take back your question and can follow up on more specifics on the next couple of steps for Adapt NYC.
Thank you. Look forward to getting that information. Just wanting to stay in line with the question about the coordination. What does collaboration look like between your agency and other agencies working on citywide infrastructure challenges?
Well, I'll turn it over to Vinny in a moment, but inevitably, much of DEP's infrastructure in the city is in the shared right-of-way, and anything, therefore, related to our water distribution or our sewer system must be done in close collaboration with the Department of Transportation and the Department of Design and Construction.
And I'll just add, as the Commissioner mentioned, the Department of Design and Construction was formed in the mid-90s to help with collaboration between the various agencies that, many of which have infrastructure either under the street or on the streets and sidewalks, and so DDC does a lot of that coordination.
Okay. What pilot programs aim to mitigate the impact of these extreme weather events is your agency responsible for? What neighborhoods are they targeting? And how will your agency ensure that this funding is going to environmental justice communities?
Well, Council Member, I'll highlight a couple of things that we are doing, and again, Vinny, you can add more. One is, as I described, is Rainfall Ready, which we just started a couple of months ago. As I characterize, that is a Band-Aid solution that is about helping homeowners protect their property and we hope preventing deaths due to extreme weather. And it includes information, alerts, public education, and the giveaway of some of these devices. Then I'll point out the Cloudburst Neighborhood Program that was started under the previous administration, but actually was an expansion of something that DEP has been working on for several years in conjunction with the city of Copenhagen, where we have learned from Copenhagen's approach to cloudburst technology, or really cloudburst design more than technology. And what this involves is designing public space as the stormwater capture infrastructure of last resort, whether that's in playgrounds or roadways or other areas of public space, that when the sewers are full, when the other green infrastructure is full, during the most extreme rainfall at an Ida kind of level, you would see, if these things are well designed, you would see rainwater being contained in those areas. In the New Normal report and what we are continuing, there's a commitment to do design studies on 10 neighborhoods, and there is funding in the budget to deliver 4 of those neighborhoods. We will, of course, be pursuing those 10 designs over the next year or so. We hope to be able ultimately to deliver more than 4, but that will be something that we explore. There has already been work underway.
I'm sorry, which neighborhoods?
The neighborhoods are still being selected. We will be looking across the city to the extent that we can, and yes, environmental justice will be a key consideration, but in fact, so will the actual drainage conditions. Some neighborhoods are better suited for this kind of approach than others, and we are also looking at places where there is already construction work planned, because that will accelerate the delivery. I think it's really important for us to look at the first several projects not as a project delivery, or not as kind of the end state, but very much as a pilot, so that we understand how to design these things, we understand what communities want, and we understand how to build and maintain them.
When will the communities be decided, and what's the criteria? Well, you just gave some of the criteria, but when will these communities be announced?
It will be over the coming months, Council Member. I don't have a specific date. And actually, Vinny points out that of all of our rain gardens, and Council Member Nurse and I took a walk in her neighborhood a couple of months ago to look at some of the green infrastructure in her district. We calculate that 85% of our rain gardens are in EJ neighborhoods.
Thank you. I'm going to now pass it to Chair Kagan for questions.
Thank you, Majority Whip. So I have a few questions regarding the program, new program that you already announced. Recently, GEP began distributing inflatable dumps to be filled with water to residents whose homes are in areas prone to flooding during rainstorms. Could you elaborate how many of these 25,000 inflatable dumps have been distributed so far, and what we're going to do with seniors and people with limited mobility?
So Rainfall Ready, again, the first step was identifying for the first time, using modeling, the locations around the city that are most vulnerable to rainfall flooding. And I didn't point out in the testimony, I think all of you know, but it's worth pointing out that one of the challenges we face is that for 10 years after Hurricane Sandy, a lot of the city and, in fact, a lot of the federal focus on resilience was placed on coastal inundation because that was the main damage that Hurricane Sandy caused. Of course, there was rain during Sandy, but the bulk of the damage was the storm surge and coastal inundation. Henri and Ida really was the wake-up call that got everybody focused again on the flooding that can come from the sky directly. And so we did this model that complements the existing long-standing coastal flooding model. It integrates it into one. And so now we have this online tool that homeowners can look at to see where they stand in terms of flooding risk. Of course, we know that many New Yorkers, of course, got a real example of it because they got flooded during Ida, they got flooded during Henri. But because the rain wasn't equally intense around the city, of course, there are places that are still potentially prone to flooding, but actually didn't do badly in the couple of storms we've had. So this was a data-driven approach that allowed us to identify out of the 1 million properties in New York City, roughly 24,000 that are at the highest risk. We reached out, DEP over the course of the summer reached out to all 24,000 or so, well actually I'm sorry, about 16,000 of the residential properties with an offer of these inflatable dams. We are collecting people's interest. We are now having weekend events where people who sign up are being given the equipment that they signed up for. Right now, I think we have about 1,500 people who have signed up to receive it and who will receive it, but the communication is ongoing and we're open to more inbound requests.
So maybe it's only a question of communication. I'm sure that many people just are not aware of this program and how that online tool being communicated to all residents. 1,500 sign up, it means citywide.
Well, actually, I will say, Council Member, for a new program that we start over the summer when people are not necessarily paying attention to every piece of mail they receive, I was actually reasonably pleased with the kind of response we got. And as I said, this is about building awareness, right? We're not kidding ourselves that this solves everybody's problem. I noted your question about senior citizens. We don't have a good answer. Right? Because the reality is that these storms come, the best case, you know where it's going to happen an hour in advance. Most of the time, as NYCM will point out, they can really accurately predict cloudbursts only 15, 20 minutes in advance, right? And the idea that we could get crews out to help any New Yorker who needs help to protect their property, frankly, at the moment, it's just unrealistic. So I know it's an insufficient answer. It was our first step. Hopefully it is a step in the right direction. I place it in the can't hurt, could help category. And on the one hand, it's disappointing that that's what we are reduced to right now. But we are doing what we can, and I'd be very open to creative ideas that are workable for how we can do more of those kinds of things, because realistically, that is what is in our future, is a number of Band-Aids to get us through the period of time it'll take to get our infrastructure up to where it needs to be.
Thank you. I would like to also recognize Councilmember Williams and Councilmember Stevens joined us. If any of my colleagues wanted to ask questions, just let us know. Talking about communications, it's, I would say, mostly a question to Office of Emergency Management, but still it's all related to our hearing today. What is being done to do outreach with hard to reach communities to make sure that they're prepared before a future storm, and even to know about upcoming storm, because I represent Coney Island and many neighborhoods of southern Brooklyn, and I say it over and over again that it looked to me in 2012 that before Superstorm Sandy, during Superstorm Sandy, and even after Superstorm Sandy, coordination between agencies and even notification was almost non-existent. So I hope in 10 years we learn something. So what about communication about storms?
Well, I can say a few things, and then Vinny, I'll ask you probably to chime in. First of all, I think that our several agencies are now well coordinated in advance of a major storm. So when we do know a storm is coming, NYCM activates It's storm, I'm sorry, the term of art, what's it? Anyway, it'll come back to me, but it activates our coordinated storm plan. Several city agencies have a role to play. For example, DEP, when NYCM notifies us that there's kind of an official dangerous storm coming, we have a heightened inspection of catch basins. We divert crews from their normal day-to-day activities to go focus on cleaning catch basins that we know are due for a cleaning or there's been a complaint, so that we can optimize the throughput of the sewer system for that storm. That's one thing we do. We also have crews on standby to respond if we hear of flooding incidents during the storm, and to respond if there are issues after the storm. NYCM, of course, is responsible for putting out the word through Notify NYC, through its media partners. And then, as you say, in terms of reaching these difficult-to-reach groups, and I mentioned it in my testimony, I think NYCM has done a creditable job of advertising Notify NYC. It is available in 14 languages. The reality is it's disproportionately taken up by people who speak English, so we know we have challenges in those other groups. And just as one example, I know I have been personally involved in working with Los Deliveristas and some of the delivery app companies which have partnered with us around Rainfall Ready, because, for example, we know that the deliveristas are very well plugged in to both the companies that they do work for and their union, or their however you would term it, I'm sorry, their advocacy group. And they've been a great partner in thinking through a couple of ways that we might work with them to share information that they could put through, and frankly, that we might be able to use them because they are out on the street, they see what's going on, and they may be able to help us. So that is just one example. I'm sure that NYCM and Commissioner Iskell would be happy to say more about their other communications efforts.
Yeah. I just want to add in that the previous mayoral administration tried to develop a database of where all these basement apartments are. That proved to be a big challenge. But the Notify NYC, again, you can sign up, and there was an event in July, I forget the date, where it actually said, flash flood occurring, if you live in a basement apartment, seek higher ground. So those notices have been going out from NYCM.
Okay, I'm still convinced that should be much better work in terms of reaching out some communities, and also in terms of translation into various languages. I had conversation about it with Office of Emergency Management at the last hearing. So you mentioned in your testimony, I will quote you, anytime the city builds a library, school, pumping station, bridge, and more, it should be designed with changing future conditions in mind. I would emphasize, strongly emphasize, to also mention every single time, and housing, because we continue to build everywhere in New York City many times like nothing happened in 2012 or after that. And so my next question is, what is the city's stance on constructing new homes and businesses in areas that regularly flood?
Well, I will say I will ultimately defer to my colleagues at the Department of City Planning, but as you know, DCP has done significant work over the last several years, including a report released, a plan for the Waterfront released in December of last year, that identifies the areas that are most at risk, and we are actively discouraging development in the most at-risk areas. The reality is, as you also know, the city faces a housing challenge.
Correct.
And some of those locations are places where housing could be built. It is a significant conundrum. It is the kind of thing where we have to balance competing interests. And I would be happy to get back to you with further. Erica actually can speak a bit more to this, but I think it's a conversation also to involve DCP in.
And just to add, Council Member, that reference on building city infrastructure to new climate standards is referring to the Local Law 41 pilot program, which Council passed last year in 2021. We are also working with HPD and NYCHA as a part of that pilot program. So they have several projects within the program. We're looking to make sure that they are prepared for a variety of climate hazards. And then they will be under a full mandate to comply with resiliency standards upon the completion of the program. So we do have those partners within the mix of 23 city agencies that we're working towards with that pilot.
Thank you. Yeah. Resiliency measures should be in every single project, especially when it's close to waterfront area. That should be like a no-brainer, must, especially if you learn anything from Superstorm Sandy. It's a must be done in every project in waterfront areas, and should be a rule, like not an exception. But thank you.
Thank you.
So in July, Department of Environmental Protection and New York City Emergency Management released Rainfall Ready NYC, a plan to prepare the city for future extreme rainfall events. So what resources have been and will be provided to residents to inform them of their flood risk? And could you elaborate more about this plan? Rainfall Ready NYC.
Councilmember, I'm happy to say more about it. So Rainfall Ready, as I said, is intended to fill in the gap, right? It's, as I think it's a Band-Aid. It's intentionally designed to keep things from getting worse, to protect people while we figure out and deliver a long-term solution. Again, it has data, so the first is to know where places are most at risk. That helps us, number one, get word out to them. It will also be taken into account as we do our planning, of course. We should be focused on the most flood-prone areas as we think about both green infrastructure and gray infrastructure like sewer investments. It includes engagement. So we did do an initial mailing to all of the most at-risk homes. We've actually been in conversation with NYCM about broader communications using the data from that map. And then, as I said, probably the most vivid thing we are doing is the delivery of these inflatable dams, but it also goes along with that kind of education that urges people to plan ahead, to keep stuff out of their basement if it's at risk, to get the flood insurance if they're at risk, to pay attention to what's going on so that they don't put themselves or perhaps their tenants at risk when there is a flood event. And that's really what it does. We are not saying that it is actually, and I would just clarify part of your question, it's not to prepare for them, right? It's to prevent the worst things from happening during the things that we currently are not prepared for. We will certainly have a lot more to say in the coming weeks, months, and years about the work that we are doing and will do more of in terms of actually preparing the city, some of which I've already talked about.
Thank you. So we have clearly more work to do. Clearly.
A lot of work to be done.
Yeah. Last question from me is about heat waves and cooling centers. This year and every year we have situations with heat waves, and every summer is like climate is Mother Nature is unpredictable. So talking about this very popular program about distribution of free air conditioners. This year, I believe the last date to distribute free air conditioners was July 8th. So, and of course, people who learned about it later on couldn't get anything. So can we change it? Can we allocate more money to this program? I don't know whether it's a question to you or to your colleagues. I'm talking about heat waves that are becoming a norm in New York City.
Hold on. Erica, yeah, do you have the data? So look, I'll say as Erica will have the specifics on that program, but thinking about cooling in a strategic way was something that got a lot of attention, I think admirably so, during the pandemic. For the first time, the city undertook an emergency-based program to provide air conditioners, and it redoubled the effort to think about how would you systematically cool neighborhoods through infrastructure investments, through reflective roofs, reflective pavement, trees, things like that. It is certainly something that we, as we work towards the next sustainability plan that is due by law, as you well know, next April, it is something that we will have a lot more to say on, because I think we are very focused on the risk that heat provides. And as I said during my testimony, it's very easy for all of us to focus on the very vivid things that happen with water, and actually miss the fact that far more New Yorkers and far more Americans die from heat as a result of climate change than die from water as a result of climate change. And Erica, maybe you could speak to the specifics of this year's program, please.
Yes, thank you for your question. We know that air conditioning is key to staying safe in extreme heat, especially for our most vulnerable New Yorkers, and affording that air conditioning is often a real challenge. So to support New Yorkers who need to stay cool to stay safe, the city is pursuing additional federal home energy assistance program funding to help more New Yorkers afford air conditioning and advocate for the expansion of the program to cover energy costs during the summer months, and to also include more efficient cooling technology, such as air source heat pumps, which provide both highly efficient electric cooling and heating. We've also been advocating over the last several years to streamline the process for applying for this program. And this summer, the cooling assistance application was also integrated into Access HRA, which makes it possible for New Yorkers to sign up for the program online. So it's something that we have actively been advocating for over the past several years to better support New Yorkers who need this resource.
So you're applying for more federal funding for this program, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, because again, program stopped this year on July 8th. So my office received calls from residents, including from some NYCHA residents, and they couldn't apply after July 8th. So I know it's a Band-Aid, everything is not long-term, but it's a popular program, obviously, because air conditioners are very, very expensive. Okay, I would like to, some of my colleagues have. Okay, Councilman Gennaro.
Thank you.
Chair Gennaro, thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am going to be relatively brief in my questions. My questions are going to focus on DEP. I have the privilege of being able to interact with the commissioner several times a week, and we have other members of the panel here that want to ask questions, but I do want to put a couple of things on the record, and so let me proceed. I'm just going through your statement, Commissioner. At the bottom of page 1, you talk about the standard of 1.75 inches per hour, which is in part of the city, and you did make mention that there are other parts of the city that have 1.5 and even I think as low as 1.0, and of course areas of the city that have no capacity whatsoever. And flipping over to the second page, you made an indication in your statement that was under some kind of evaluation, I guess the 1.75 inch per hour standard. And I would imagine that would be, of course, looking forward. We're not retrofitting. We're not going, we're not going backwards. And I guess my question that comes from that is that you're not being an engineer. If you got parts of the system, and I guess it must happen now. You got parts of the system that are 1.75, parts that are 1.5, parts that are 1.0. Doesn't that create bottlenecks as because you've got a 4-lane highway going into 3 lanes, and that must be a very complicated endeavor, both to manage what currently exists now, where you have 3 different capacities at work, unless they're all in sectors that just feed into themselves or whatever. But how does that all work?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and I'll say a couple of things and then pass it on to Vinny, who clearly knows much more about how that all works than I do. But the way to think about it is actually the city has a number of drainage districts, right? That all, as you point out, right? You think about the sewer system, it's a bit of a tree, right? You have branches, and on your given residential block, you might have a sewer that's only collecting water, sewage or stormwater, or both if it's combined, from that block, but those start feeding into others. They feed into the trunk sewers that are the outlet that takes the sewage to the treatment plants. And so really when we think about the different numbers, the different capacities, it's about a given sewage district, and which is why, as I said, part of what we are working on is a number of drainage plans. That's when we look at that whole network as a system. It could encompass 1 or 2 neighborhoods, maybe 3 or 4 neighborhoods, depending on the local geography. And we think about precisely that. One of the worst things you could do in designing or building a sewer system is actually actively to create bottlenecks like that, where you have something that's high capacity flowing into low capacity, because what that then does is generate sewer backups, right? And so we avoid that, but what it means is that when we design a new system, we do everything we can right now, and this was established several years ago, so it is not something that's been done in the last year, to this 1.75-inch standard. And we will be looking how high we could take that. But I will point out, and you know this very well, that there are some natural limits on how much the sewer system can accept. So it would be wrong for anyone to think that the sewer system can or should be designed for a 4-inch storm. That would have some catastrophic impacts, including we would need trunk sewers so wide that in many places we'd be tearing down buildings to make the road wide enough to accommodate that level of sewer. Vinny, anything to add there?
No, I think that was explained very well. And as the Commissioner mentioned in his testimony, and you mentioned, Mr. Chair, that the sewer system was under the jurisdiction of the borough presidents until about the 1970s, when we established this new 1.75-inch per hour limit. And it is very challenging to manage these different drainage districts. But again, as the Commissioner said, we're looking for opportunities. We're going to use a more layered approach to drainage. So there's a lot of tools that we need to use going forward.
Sure, and it seems like even if we were to adopt greater capacity in number of inches per hour, I mean, by the time that rippled all the way through this, I mean, we have, what, 6,000 miles of sewer mains or whatever, so certainly the over the near and mid-horizon would be what you're talking about with in regard to the rainfall ready and things that come after that, the cloudburst, design. Let me just mention, I think we've discussed this. Going back many years ago, we did the stormwater management plan, the comprehensive stormwater management plan that kind of, we work with DEP, and that's what, led to the rain gardens and all that. It was a law. It was mostly for CSO mitigation. That was really the vision there. But now we have to think in terms of flooding, and so we just, the council wants to work with DEP because we have every intention of creating a law on this, and we don't. So it would be like stormwater management plan 2.0, so to speak, and we don't want that to be out of sync with what the administration's vision is. So I'll make sure that we will synergize that and go forward as we did many years ago. And going through your statement, I made little notes here. Did that. In the briefing paper that was done for all the members of the committees that are here today, there is mention of the New York, New Jersey Harbor and Tributaries Focus Area Feasibility Study, known as the HAT study, and that is, according to the briefing document we have, is a, quote, necessary precursor to the beginning of any federally funded harbor-wide resiliency projects. If you could give us an update on that, is that proceeding? The federal funding was halted, now it's been turned on again. Is that going okay? Anything we have to, anything to see here?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yes, there is. So yes, what you are describing, the HAT study, is something that that New York City is very much involved in. Erica and her colleagues at NYCC are in perhaps weekly dialogue with the Army Corps on this. We are kind of a privileged local partner. The official local partners to this project are New York State DEC and New Jersey DEP. And I'm pleased to say that the two commissioners and I have spoken on a number of occasions over the last several months about this particular study. I believe I'm even meeting with the Army Corps later this week, but we are in close conversation with the Army Corps. The way this works, and the Army Corps has a very rigorous process. It follows a number of very standardized steps to do one of these studies. They've completed the initial phase of their engineering work. As you point out, last week they made public their preferred alternative among several alternatives that had been studied, and those alternatives were all publicly available. They identified the one that they are inclined to support. Now we begin a public outreach phase where New York State, New York City, and New Jersey will be closely involved in coordinating with them.
If I could just stop you there for a second. So there was a couple of things on the table, and they figured out one which is their preferred. I was looking at this more as a trigger for the release of federal funds for some of the projects that the other chair was talking about, of things that we might be able to get from the federal government to fund these. I think maybe I'm not looking at this right. So.
Yes, I'll distinguish, and again, Erica, you can correct me if I get this wrong at all, but the Army Corps has these evaluation programs that lead to federal funding for Army Corps projects.
Oh, okay.
Right, so if you think about what's currently going on the South Shore of Staten Island, that's an Army Corps project. DEP, the state, are both closely involved, but it is an Army Corps project funded through the congressional appropriation to the Army Corps. And those projects have to go through this rigorous approach where they do a cost-benefit analysis. They come up with their preferred alternative. They do public outreach. They will reach a final decision next year. This particular project, the HAT study, has the potential.
Which is what? What's the project? What do they want to do?
So this is asking the question, how would the Army Corps create the physical infrastructure that could protect the entire New York estuary from coastal inundation?
Oh, so you mean, so is this kind of like a storm surge barrier thing?
Yes, that is one of the things. That was a storm surge barrier across the Narrows and across Sandy Hook.
Right.
Were two alternatives. Those were not in the preferred alternative the Corps recommended, or has identified as their preferred, to be precise. But that was among the options. And so this is the study that is evaluating the big picture approach to defending the harbor. As far as I know, and Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, this has no connection to IIJA or other federal programs that are about us applying either to the federal government or more normally to the state for federal funds.
Right, and now we're getting like a little far afield because this is about sinkholes and stuff and about rainfall, and this project seems to be more about surge and protecting. Okay, so let me move on from that, and yeah, that's been covered, and we can and we have one of the chairs and members here that represent areas of Southeast Queens that have no storm sewer capacity as yet, and it was great to be with the speaker and the mayor and Southeast Queens to do that. It was some huge amount of money. It was, and we're all working, towards the ultimate, build out that will build out Southeast Queens. And one thing that I would like to see at some point is there some, when will that be kind of put down on a piece of paper? We'll be able to see like when the final build out for areas of the city that have no storm, sewer capacity, to at least know when we can expect that, to at least see like what the plan is for it. I say this a lot. I know you're tired of the question, I get it.
It's fine. Thank you. Look, the Southeast Queens program is, of course, as you suggest, a top priority for this administration. We have more than $2 billion in the 10-year capital plan to deliver a full sewer system for Southeast Queens. I do not at the moment have an end date. It is a massive undertaking, as you can well understand, but it's a legitimate question, and we'll look into that.
Thank you. I'm gonna keep banging that drum, and you know that. But my colleagues are very good at getting out in front of me and putting forward questions that were very good, and so no need for me to rehash those. And so that will conclude my questioning. And just a bit of housekeeping, Madam Chair. I have a medical appointment, and rather than gavel out the EP part of this joint hearing, I'm going to ask my colleague, Councilmember Kagan, as a member of the chair of the Committee on Environmental Protection, if he could, continue in this hearing in the dual role as chair of the Committee on Resiliency and chair of the Committee on Environmental Protection, and with no objection, Madam Lead Chair, that's what I'd like, if that's okay.
Absolutely, thank you. Hope
Okay.
everything is well.
Okay, thank you very much. Fun to be here. Thanks for having me. Okay.
Next, we will pass it to Councilmember Velasquez for questioning.
Hi, and once again, I really want to thank you and your whole team for coming out as promptly as you did, and addressing Mother Nature at her worst, right? And taking it out on our community, but you guys were there, so I want to give you the proper recognition. And thank you also for having the subsequent calls and being there with us. As we're talking about getting stuff done, it's about also being there with us, so we appreciate that very much. And so as part of today's hearing, and I know we've privately discussed this, so I just want to make sure that we get it on the record for my community to hear it directly from you all. What is the current status of the street in Morris Park that encountered this sinkhole?
No, thanks, Councilmember, and your presence there was very important to the residents as well. So I want to note that. So DEP and our contractor has completed cleaning out all of the material that fell into the sewer. As the commissioner testified, about 200 feet of sewer was impacted. The damaged section of sewer has all been now replaced with reinforced concrete, about 157 feet of it. The street is being reconstructed now. One of the things we do want to do, and again, in the commissioner's testimony, he talked about in that small neighborhood, there is this vitrified interlocking block sewer that was patented in 1915 and tried out by the Bronx Borough president in 1916. It's lasted a long time, but what we want to do is put a liner in it now, a cured in place liner for about 3,300 feet to line this type of sewer, and that project is going to go on, and we'll continue to monitor it during the interim.
And I know we discussed this, but just once again to get it on the record, what was the final decision in terms of the cause for the sinkhole?
We're still collecting that information. We've spent almost $400,000 was the last number I saw, and I'm sure the bills are going to keep coming in, but that was the last invoice I saw.
And was it related to heavy rainfall that had occurred, or was it structural issues beneath the street and within the sewer system?
I'm sorry, Councilmember. I think you said cause, and Vinnie may have heard
Caused. Sorry, it's the Bronx accent. Sorry.
Versus my Queens accent.
As I said in my testimony, Councilmember, this ultimately was related to climate change. And it was related to the fact that the surcharging of the sewer, which is when the sewer has more water in it than it can accept, and therefore water is trying to get in through the catch basins and other sources, that increases the pressure on the tube that is the sewer itself. And in this case, we believe that the design was just not strong enough. It started to weaken when it was subjected to those kinds of pressures. As I've also said, I think there are lots of other designs in service that we're actually pretty confident from what we know now that they won't be weakened by that. And so this is not a general fear that all of our sewers are going to do this. But as I also said in my testimony, no doubt there are going to be still some surprises down the way. And so we will now have to be much more attuned to seeing patterns when these things happen. But that was ultimately, this cause, we believe, was, or the cause of that particular sinkhole was the impact of the repeated stress of the several significant record-setting heavy rainstorms we've had over the last year.
Yeah. And I just want to say, it was interesting in reading the patent from 1915 is that the inventor said it was the ease of construction versus traditional type of sewers that come in big sections that weigh several tons. These are just like sort of Lego pieces that went together. Lasted for 100 years, so I guess there was some value to it, but.
I mean, it was a new idea. Do we know where else in the Bronx this design was placed? Is it throughout my district? Because that certainly feels like it's the case.
So far, that's the only place we found it.
Of course, District Lucky 13. So now, as a follow-up, what type of resources does the city offer to help homeowners that have been impacted by the sinkhole and the resulting flooding?
Well, so as you know, council member, when damage occurs, if it is the fault of the city, then there is a process by which homeowners can seek claims from the controller's office. So the process is that they fill out a controller claim form soon after the event. The controller asks for a report on what happened from the most relevant agency. In this case, of course, it was DEP. We write a report about that. We submit it to the controller. The controller then makes the determination, is the city liable to pay the claims? And then the controller decides and notifies them. In this case, there have been other situations where people have been concerned about how long it takes for DEP and other agencies to get their report to the controller done. In this case, knowing that people were affected, knowing that it was the second impact on this stretch, we actually, in a couple of weeks, got our report done and transmitted to the controller, so the controller should be able to process claims now.
Perfect. And then I think I have additional questions, if that's okay with you, chairs. Yeah? Okay, cool. What are the prospects for how the city will fare in terms of getting funds from the bipartisan infrastructure law dedicated to water?
Well, as I said earlier, getting our fair share of this money is a top priority for the Adams administration, is a top priority for Deputy Mayor Joshi, is a top priority for me and everybody else at DEP. And so a couple of things that we are doing. We are, as I said, participating, our CFO, Joe Murren, participates in a weekly meeting led by the Deputy Mayor and the Office of Management and the Budget, where we look over every piece of new news, every notice of a new funding opportunity. We figure out across city agencies what the most eligible programs are so that we have the strongest application. And we put those forward as a joint effort. I think this is actually a great example of getting stuff done. It's a great example of interagency coordination. And I think one of the things that OMB and the Deputy Mayor have ensured is that agencies are not struggling or fighting for their own, even if it weakens the case. We're putting forward the city's best, most likely to succeed case. And so I think that is a wonderful thing. I think one of the questions that we are looking towards is how money that flows through the state is awarded. We are very lucky to have right now a state government that is a really good partner to the city. I have a very good working relationship with the DEC commissioner particularly. We have a good relationship with the New York State Department of Health, which is where some of this money flows through. As recently as last Friday, we had a senior leadership meeting on both sides involving the CEO of the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation, which is actually the distribution arm for many of these federal funds. And in fact, perhaps for the first time in anybody's memory, we actually have state agencies that are working with us to give us advice on how New York City can best apply. Now, traditionally, there have been some challenges, and I think in recent years, New York City has been less aggressive than it could be at applying for state money. There hasn't been that much money available in many cases, and what that has meant is that, DEP has as I said, a roughly $2 billion a year capital budget, $1.5 billion roughly operating budget. If there's $1 million grant opportunity, it may not be worth it. With the monies coming through with IIJA, the potential for a $4.2 billion environmental bond act that the voters of New York State are going to decide on this fall, there is real money at the table, and that has hastened this. I think we have seen a number of things that we are trying to work through with our state partners, traditional things that, for example, place limits on how much money any particular municipality can get out of a given program. New York City is 50% of the state. If a program has rules that says that any municipality can get no more than 10% of the money, there's kind of a structural issue that we face there. And again, I'll hasten to add, I think we've had great partners who are looking at some of these traditional constraints and helping us think about, are there creative ways that we can maximize those monies? But that is going to take a lot of creativity on both our part and the state's part.
Can I ask you to explain a little bit more about the Environmental Bond Act that is going to be on the ballot this fall, and what kind of awareness have you launched within your agency?
Well, I will say, since that is something up to the voters, that is not something that DEP has played a role in advocating for. It is a state effort. You know, of course, an appointed official, it would be inappropriate to opine on whether it's a good idea or not. So we have not done any direct outreach on that.
Okay. It'll be on us. It's fine. And then I think I'm good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Councilmember Williams, followed by Councilmember Holden.
Hello. I actually want to follow up on Chair Gennaro's question. I know he asked if there was an end date, but do you have a status for the $2 billion project in Southeast Queens?
Yes. Well, I'll just start off by saying, you know, again, the Southeast Queens project, as I said, is a top priority for us. We work very closely with the Department of Design and Construction, which leads most of the work because it is almost entirely work that's done in the public right-of-way, and therefore involves coordination with a number of other city agencies, including DOT. And I think one of the things that has been really great, and I hope your perspective and what you hear from your constituents would agree, that we've incorporated a lot of highly effective neighborhood outreach to that, so that the local residents know when stuff is happening, they know when their street is going to be disrupted. And in part, that has actually helped us to complete a number of these projects, or our colleagues at DDC to complete a number of these projects, in fact, ahead of schedule and in some cases below budget. So I think it's quite a success.
Do you have like a status of completion?
Yes.
So just briefly, to date, either completed or actively in construction now is $620 million in projects. And the 10-year capital plan has an average of about $200 million per year through the rest of the decade. And as the commissioner said, you know, we can certainly get you a list of all the active projects and share a map as well.
Okay, and is there any way to expedite the process? Because it has taken some time, because you know, even when you think before de Blasio actually put in a $2 billion, it was already slated that this was something that was a priority for previous administrations, but the money was stalled. So this is something for decades that the community has fought for. So is there any possible way to expedite? Do you have any explanation as to why it's taken so long?
Look, I'd say the main reason it's taking so long is it's such a big project. It is a massive thing to invest more than $2 billion in public streets that have to stay in service largely during construction. And so that is one of the challenges. Of course, we prioritize those projects. They kind of receive a privileged level of attention. Are there ways to accelerate it? I mean, you could imagine a significant expansion of the staff, and you could imagine many more concurrent construction projects, but I would certainly defer to my colleagues at DDC about what it would actually take to do it more aggressively.
Okay, I know there was a conversation around a separate issue in your report to the Comptroller's office, but I know that you recently submitted the report to the Comptroller's office for the Hurricane Ida claims. So one, I wanted to know why it took so long, because it was like almost a year. And two, I can't speak for everybody that filed a Hurricane Ida claim, but I know the people in my district cited tremendous complaints because DEP actually, by way of DDC, digged up their ground twice to do same type of work. And a lot of the people on the block cited structural damage to their homes and said that they never received that much water into their basements prior to DDC, by way of DEP, digging up their street again. And so I don't know if that was considered in your report, but I guess a question that I have, because I don't feel like I asked the question, is that report, can it be made public, your report that you actually sent to the Comptroller's office?
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, and I'll just address what's in the report, and we can see how we can make it available from them. But as you know, you heard in the commissioner's testimony, the rainfall rates during Ida were unprecedented, were more than the capacity of the sewer system. Even our largest sewers at 1.75 inches per hour were exceeded. And so the flooding that occurred wasn't for a failure of the sewer system. It was because there was just the sewers were full and there was overland runoff. That was
But
the reason.
DEP historically has been on record stating that the sewage systems in Southeast Queens are inadequate. As you mentioned, we don't have storm sewers. And also, as I mentioned, that there's work that was being done, and I know there's some discrepancies. Community members feel like there was an error, and then you all had to come down and dig up the ground again because the wrong piping was laid. So, I mean, I get what you're saying. It's Mother Nature. We can't be held liable for Mother Nature, but we can be held liable for maintaining our infrastructure and inadequacy of maintaining our infrastructure and be held liable for that.
Is this 183rd
Yes.
and 91st? Yeah, and so we've certainly been working with the Department of Design and Construction. That's where some of the new storm sewer infrastructure was going in. We know that DDC went back to improve it even more, but we'll get you further reports on that.
I have more questions. Okay, so can persistent flooding issues in the region be attributed to the area's high water table? So specifically in Southeast Queens?
There are some locations where the groundwater is an issue, but I think it is important to distinguish between the rain that's or the flooding that's caused from above and the flooding that's caused from below.
Okay, and if so, does that mean that pumping groundwater more consistently has the potential to reduce the area's flood vulnerability?
So the issue of how of what might happen if we can reduce the groundwater is of course complex, as you well know. There are some challenges with some of the most obvious answers, leaving aside whether they would actually have the desired effect because of the connection with Nassau County's water supply, right, which draws from the same underground wells that are contributing to the high water table in that part of the city. Is it possible that pumping could help? It is possible. It is something that we are actively looking into. We have just begun a project with the U.S. Geological Survey to really get a full map of the underwater or the underground hydrology of that area. And we have a couple of pilots going on that I think we've described to you and your staff for new kinds of infrastructure that might actually alleviate the problem. If they work, then they will be considered for a bigger rollout.
So are you collecting any data around the number of homes required to use electricity and pumps to pump out groundwater? So there are a lot of community members that have had to install their own pumps in their basements to pump out the water. Have you collected any data on that?
No.
Okay. Are you, in addition to the current studies I know that you mentioned, are you performing any monitoring of groundwater levels in the Southeast Queens community?
Yeah, well, that is, Council Member, what I mentioned is we are engaged in a project with the U.S. Geological Survey to do a full map of where the groundwater is, in fact, around the city, although, of course, Southeast Queens is the area that is most important to focus on. So the answer is yes, we are looking at it. Right now, we do not have a full monitoring system installed in any way.
And would you be able to provide updates on that to elected officials? So the data, because I know in our preliminary conversation that we had, it was anecdotal about sort of what you plan to do, but it didn't seem concrete in terms of a timeline and actually what the implementation of the study will be. So do you now have more clarity, timeline, any sort of dates where you can actually provide updates on status?
I can certainly get you more information on what's happened since we last discussed this. I think it's important to be clear. It will take some time for us to develop a full action plan and a strategy for how to address this issue and what is feasible. What we would be able to update you on is what the status of the project with the geological survey is, and the status of the couple of infrastructure innovations that was described to your office. We can certainly give you a status update on those.
Okay, I'll just ask one more question and come back if there's a second round.
Well, sorry, if we could come back and.
For a second round? Okay, I'll ask more questions in the second round.
Thank you, chairs, and thank you all for your testimony. I have some questions on the technology that's applied when you have a depression or a sinkhole, or how do you assess, how bad it is? Is it sound waves, or what technology do you use?
So when we first get there, council members, we'll look for any leaks, any surface conditions where there may be water. That's one. Second is we'll poke down manholes with a camera to just take a look. How's the sewer looking? Is there any structural issues there? But that's what we'll do. We'll then open up the street, working with DOT to just take a look at, what does it look like beneath that roadway depression? Is there soil washed away?
But do you contract that out, or do you do it in-house?
Both. Yeah, both.
Both, because and when we had the sewer projects in Maspeth, we've had a number of sinkholes, and I think the contractor was using sound waves. Are there, I think we spoke earlier, I think the last council, the geographic information systems or geospatial, is that used on site?
Yeah, we'll use sound waves. We have stethoscopes. We listen for any, water running beneath the street. So there's a number of tools, but, sometimes you mentioned when there is work that was done either by, a city hired contractor or a private plumber, sometimes backfills aren't done appropriately, and that creates depressions and sinkholes. So there's a bunch of reasons, but, we use different technology to look for those.
All right, just in echoing Councilmember Williams' remarks about when we have sewer projects in the area, generally every homeowner gets denied if, let's say, their stoop cracks or the sidewalk or their front yard, or so I think 9 out of 10 get denied from the controllers, if not more. So it seems to be like a lose-lose for the homeowners. They got to put up with a sewer project sometimes that lasts years, and then don't get rewarded, at least for returning their property. And there's always a problem with the contractor and insurance and everything else. So if we can look at that, in the future, and we could document these properties and do proper care for the homeowners. Just one other thing. I know we talked about rain gardens before, and we have several in my district that are sitting there now 6 months after they've been installed and never completed. That means there's no plantings, the contractor's sign is still there. It's a mess. It's a dumping ground and nobody's cleaning it. How, after the contractor leaves, when could we expect these rain gardens to be finished? I mean, is there a time limit, or it just keeps going on for years? Because that's what we're facing, I think.
Okay. Now, we'll take a look. If you can send me those locations. The contractor, should be completing them. They're under the contractor's care for a period of time, up to a year, at which point DEP takes over. We have had some challenges this past year in hiring staff to maintain them, so we know that's been an issue. But if you can send me the location.
No, but I'm saying after the contractor does his work, it just doesn't get finished. you know, he leaves, the contractor leaves. Whose responsibility is to finish the final 1%? They just fill it in, put plants in. Who, is that DEP or is that?
Should be, I believe that should be done by our contractor. So
the
what you're
contractor
describing-
walked away from all the ones in my district.
Well, then we'll take a closer look.
Okay, because I got a bunch
That
of
is
them.
contrary to what
All right.
should be happening. We will follow up if
Okay,
there was
thank
a ball
you.
dropped at DEP.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Holden. Next, we will hear from Councilmember Nurse, followed by Councilmember Narcisse.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners. Really enjoyed your testimony. I just have 3 questions. One was based on your testimony around the 500 FloodNet sensors that you're planning to install over the next 5 years. This is not something I knew about, so I was just curious if installation had started, and if there's a priority plan, and how many will be installed per year?
I know off the top of my head the commitment is 500 over 5 years, so we're aiming at about 100 a year. I don't, Erica, you know off the top of your head.
Yeah,
I'm
so
sure.
we've installed 36 thus far, and we're aiming for 50 by the end of this year. And then the rollout will expand to 500 over the course of 5 years. The locations of which have a multitude of sources, looking at areas of historic flooding, different community complaints. We'd certainly be happy to speak further with you. I think if there's of interest that we can also add a sensor somewhere that you would be interested to see, so we can follow up.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. I'd be curious for some in Bushwick and certain parts of my district that had a lot of flash flooding during Ida. And then I'm just going to shift to heat waves. Chair Sylvina Brooks Powers and I introduced a bill actually recently about requiring DOT to pilot the use of cool pavement on city streets to bring down the temperature and the urban heat island effect. So I was just curious if you all had any initial thoughts on this method and this approach, or I guess treatment of the street, and if you've had any plans in the past or upcoming around piloting this.
Leslie will speak on that right now, Councilor.
Great. Thank you for your question. DOT currently has a permeable pavement pilot underway at 3 sidewalk locations, with construction completed at 2 of the 3 locations. And right now, these are located in Brooklyn. We have one near the Chester Playground on Bristol Street, Remston Playground, and also near the Howard Pool on East New York Avenue. So at these locations, we are now in 2 of the 3 of them. We are in a monitoring period in which we're going to be taking measurements and evaluating the effectiveness of these permeable pavements.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about cool pavement.
Oh, cool pavement.
Sorry if that was missaid.
Okay. So recently, DOT was awarded a FEMA grant called the Cool Corridors Study. It's not a capital project itself, but is intended to improve DOT's ability to incorporate heat mitigation into future design and construction projects to assist in seeking grant funds for follow-up capital projects. So as part of this study, which is going to be starting later this year, we're going to be developing a toolkit of interventions and best practices to mitigate heat effects in neighborhoods. And we have actually determined those neighborhoods in which we're going to be doing this study, different typologies. We're looking at a high-density mixed-use corridor in East Harlem, a low-density residential corridor in East Flatbush. We're also going to be looking at under the elevated structure corridor, both on Jerome Avenue and in Hunts Point, and also taking a look at a transit hub corridor in the Far Rockaways. So as part of this study, we will be analyzing and creating metrics to see how these interventions will actually lower heat in these areas. And like I said, this will be a good launching point for us to leverage this study and apply for further federal funding for capital projects.
Great, that's exciting. And then my last question, I think is on topic. I guess I would be just a little bit remiss if I didn't bring up the Hole, the community in East New York that is essentially living in a swamp with, I mean, you all have been to it, so I won't go into the details, but just while you're here, do you have any updates on the city's plan to address the conditions that this community is living in?
Well, I'll start, and Vinny has been very deeply engaged in attending the regular neighborhood meetings. So, you know, the Jewel Streets area is, of course, an example. It's far from the only place around the city where what we are dealing with is the legacy of substandard construction that dates back to a period of you know, frankly, lax oversight of how people built houses and prior to the creation of DEP and the more rigorous rules that we now enforce for how drainage is done and sewer connections and other things related to the infrastructure. So what we are currently looking at within DEP and with our colleagues at DOT and DDC is a variety of solutions for that neighborhood. The traditional solution would involve raising the street grade, which we think has some very negative impacts for many of the existing homes. And so we are looking at this as an opportunity to think creatively, to explore whether green infrastructure could be as good or better in terms of addressing that neighborhood's problem, but there's a lot of attention on it. I don't have the full set of solutions yet because those are being developed, but we are working on those. We have shared some initial ideas at some of the neighborhood meetings, and we will be sharing some more going forward. Anything? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, chairs.
Thank you, Chair. When you make the comparison, like in the paragraph where you're talking about the bridge and Rome, let me tell you something. I'm scared because we know the history of Rome, right? There was a whole city underneath our city, right? So I hope that we're responsible enough, all the smart people sitting here, that our city is not going to be under after a few generations, because we have to be responsible. We cannot be penny wise, dollar foolish. We have to make sure whatever the contract that we do for the city, that we do it in a mind that we have to keep our city going for generation to come. We have some big problem. Climate change is real. We know that for a fact, and we all have to be responsible to address the city needs, right? We have big problems, we have little problems. For me, coming from the 46th district, which I represent Canarsie, and this is my home base, this is where I live. During Sandy, I have seen my house flood more than 4 feet, water to almost to my neck, because since I'm short, and my car floated away, and so many cars, right? But there's an announcement that New York City announced that a completion of $148 million for a 3-phase program to reduce street flooding, ensure the reliability of the drinking water, right? Delivery system, improve the health of Fresh Creek, Jamaica Bay. As someone whose home, right, flooded, like I said, and being through under so much, even a regular rain, we have to run for cover, right? I'm sincerely thankful for the work that we've been doing, even following this multi-million-dollar project. Homes in Canarsie and parts of my district continue to flood during storms that impale in comparison to Sandy. What else can be done in this high-risk area to mitigate the flooding in the streets, home, parks, everywhere?
Well, Council Member, you know, first of all, I appreciate your point that climate change is real. As you may know, I've been saying that for most of my career, and was part of New York City's first effort to actually put climate change on the map. So I could not agree with you more. I'd say in reference to your your comment about the most recent project, the reality is the projects that we do individually, they are only a small component of what has to happen. We know that. We have to take a multi-level approach to addressing, as I also pointed out, the two water-related problems of coastal inundation, which is what Sandy was, and rainfall-generated stormwater flooding, which is what Ida was. They're different. They have, in many cases, different solutions, different approaches you need to take to protect yourself from them. And we have a number of areas, including yours, around the city that are highly vulnerable to both. The first step is understanding where the risks are, in part because of Sandy, in part because of the greater history of hurricanes. New York City has a much greater tradition of understanding the coastal flooding risk. And that was, of course, the priority, not the exclusive focus, but the priority of most of the work done over the last decade in response to Sandy. The reality is that Ida was a wake-up call, and although extreme rainfall had been predicted, it had not been focused on in previous years as a top priority for resilience planning, and so that is now something that we are 100% focused on, and we will have more to say on this as we go forward, but as I've said, the solution is to make sure that our sewers work, but not to rely on them only, and to complement them with the green infrastructure that will do much more for us and actually be much more cost-effective and beneficial to the environment. Anything?
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, Councilmember, and that the streets have flatlands in their names for a reason. It's a very low-lying area. It's tough to drain, and as the commissioner said, we're going to have to look at a layered approach, including the tide gates that we recently installed.
Thank you on that one. Since I was talking about little problems, like catch basin being a problem for us, I want to know how often they're supposed to be clean.
Well, certainly. In fact, can you get the chart? We have, in just this fiscal year, we've implemented a new approach to when we clean catch basins. Previously, it had been done in a bit of a responsive way, but what we, 28, thank you. But what we now have implemented is a data-driven schedule for how we identify catch basins based on a number of factors, the surrounding area, the land use around there, what we know about what contributes to the clogging of catch basins. So some of our catch basins, roughly, so we have 150,000 around the city.
Mm-hmm.
We have, roughly, 15,000 that are slated now to be cleaned every 6 months. Basically, if you look around the city, on most commercial strips, those catch basins are now scheduled to be cleaned every 6 months. Then there's a sliding scale. Others are 1 year, others are every 2 years, others are every 3 years. There are a number of factors that go into that schedule. This is something that we will be refining as we identify places that we get to and they are clogged, or we get 311 calls. And we find out that places are, catch basins are being clogged more frequently. We will put them on the more frequent schedule. But this was a way to make sure that we didn't have crews going out and investing the time cleaning a catch basin that's actually only a quarter full, right, which is a waste of time and effort, and really prioritizing those. We've also, for example, worked with the MTA to identify catch basins that are near subway stations that experience flooding, and we've put some of those on our most frequently cleaned list.
I like to keep things, I like to be truthful in things. But in the Caribbean area, we know that grease can be a problem, right? Because the way we cook, and I'm not saying like it's okay, but I'm saying knowing that, shouldn't we do more education around that to make sure that our catch basin, whatever can clog our catch basin, is being done? Because that's one of the contributing factors, from my understanding, that can cause, the water not going in.
Well, we should be clear. There's two things here. Yes, grease is one of our biggest problems. It's actually grease in the sewers that causes the majority of sewer backups around the city. It is not rainwater. Generally speaking, and Vinny, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but generally speaking, that is not about the catch basins, right? That is about grease that individuals or restaurants are pouring down the drain. It's illegal if a restaurant does it. It's frowned upon and highly discouraged if a resident does it. Catch basins, if grease is clogging a catch basin, that means somebody is doing something really bad and illegally dumping grease down the drain, like under cover of night. I don't think that's a problem that we see all that.
Minimal, yeah.
But that's a separate issue.
All right.
Catch basins, when they fill up, it's usually debris from the street. It's sand, it's silt, it's bags from potato chips or things like that rush down and fill up over time into that catch basin.
So I don't want to keep you all day, but another things I have in NYCHA houses for cooling facilities, why all the NYCHA houses doesn't have a cooling system in there? Because we know what's going on with NYCHA houses. Most of the folks don't have ACs and they're looking for a place, and sometimes our park is not even, welcoming or big enough or not enough parks in the area. So can we have cooling system in all NYCHA houses if possible? That's something I throw out there because we need that.
It's something I will take back to NYCHA and NYSA, which manages.
The cooling system I'm talking about, because since we're talking about climate change. So I expect all my organization, all the folks that work together, DEP, and transportation work together, because there is a lot of issues around things. Like, I'm gonna give you an example and I'm gonna leave it alone. I called for a sinking hole on the street. I saw that, I put a coin in there, and then I find out that DP went in there, clogged their part, and then there is probably more than, I would say, in all fairness, it was still deep. And then I called back, and they told me, no, DP did their part, so I did my part now, you have to call DOT. So I find that it should be like DP finish and call DOT. So the people don't have to call back and forth if we all collaboratively not working in silo. That's all I'm gonna leave it at. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time.
Okay, next we'll have a statement by Councilmember Ariola, followed by Councilmember Williams.
Thank you, Chair. How's everybody, okay? Good. So I just want to touch on what my esteemed colleague, Councilmember Nurse, brought up, which is the Jewel Street project. And I just want to make mention that this is an ongoing monthly meeting organized by the Community Land Trust Councilmember Charles Barron's office and myself, and we're all part of a multi-agency task force. But I want to commend you, because each month you come with a comprehensive report, because it is not a one-size-fits-all solution to that particular area. But each month you show up with different solutions for different portions of the area. You not only work with the Community Land Trust and the elected officials, but you work with the community both in a group and individually. So I commend you for that. I represent the 32nd Council District. It experiences both coastal and pluvial flooding. We are all about resiliency in the district. We had Hurricane Sandy devastated our community, and Hurricane Ida, Superstorm Ida, took lives from people in our community. We've experienced, and I want to talk about the positives, we've experienced what the flood net sensors can do in low-lying areas, such as Hamilton Beach in my district, and it really gave a great barometer as to when flooding was coming. Was it coastal flooding? Was it from the tide? And so that's wonderful. We also work well with your outreach division. We've distributed rain barrels, where we have one coming up, a distribution, and the inflatable dams are really a wonderful addition to that measure for protection. We have our fair share of water main breaks and water main leaks, one most recently on 91st and 157 Avenue. 311 was called, our office was called, your team was out there. It was major. They had to rip up the street. It wasn't just that. Howland was doing a project, DOT was doing a project, but thank you, because the residents were not negatively impacted for a very long period of time, and you had a lot of people knocking on doors, talking to them about when their water would be turned back on. So thank you for mitigating any type of complaints from the neighbors that are on that block. We also have bioswales and rain gardens. I do agree with the Councilmember Holden in that it oftentimes becomes the responsibility of maybe the local civic association to clean out the debris that's in there. But if you say that DEP is responsible, then when we don't have the option of a civic association that is as engaged, then certainly we'll be reaching out. Porous pavement, we're all in. There's a contract on the Rockaway Peninsula right now that's using that, and we're looking forward for that as well. But you made mention of Notify NYC. When you talk about cloudbursts and storms that cannot be predicted except for maybe 20 minutes ahead, Notify NYC is how you learn very quickly that a cloudburst is coming. Notify NYC is available in 14 languages, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention them since I'm the chair of Fire and Emergency Management. But that's where we work together as a team, both government and community partnership. So thank you for that partnership that we have, you with our office, you with our district, and you with the City of New York. I appreciate that.
Okay, I'm back. At what point will the department determine that pumping out groundwater is required to help address the flooding risk in Southeast Queens? I think you somewhat answered that in terms of you currently doing your studies to ascertain whether or not pumping out the water would improve flooding. I just wanted to underscore, I know we all inherited this. I know some folks are new, but not new to the issue. I'm a new council member, but I hope you understand the frustration, decades and decades of inaction, despite DEP being on record. I actually joked and laughed because it was a hearing that Jim Gennaro had when he was first in office, where it shows that DEP and the city on record said that they were responsible, but nothing has taken place. And so I do hope that you continue to prioritize it. Another issue that I had mentioned to you in reference to the same issue, York College is approximately pumping out like 5,000 gallons of water per day. So has there been any conversations around alleviating the fact that they have to pay the city to pump out groundwater that the city has not assisted in addressing? It's really an oxymoron, if you ask me.
Yeah, so this is a long-standing issue as well. And again, the issue is groundwater that infiltrates into basements. To keep those basements dry, many people pump out. York College is probably the largest facility that has to pump groundwater into the sewer system. But because there is a discharge into the system that makes its way to a treatment plant that has to be treated, there is a sewer charge for York College.
And so that's DEP, right? But is there any way to provide some form of relief?
I'll say something like that would have to go to the water board, because that would be an adjustment in the rate. But that is something that we can take back as an idea and discuss.
Okay, Local Law 178 of 2018 in relation to developing a pilot program in Southeast Queens to use dewatering discharge as a means of heating and cooling buildings was intended to permit homes that were inundated with groundwater to be able to use the groundwater for heating and cooling. What have we done to advance the implementation of this local law?
Councilmember, I will have to get back to you on that. I'm not personally up to date on where we are on that one.
Okay, what wells, if any, are we considering pumping to lower the underground water table in Southeast Queens? Have you identified wells, or is that pursuant to the current pilot?
Councilmember, look, I think as I said a little while ago, and I think you, and I appreciate you alluding to the fact that we all inherited this problem. The groundwater issue in that part of Queens is something we are taking seriously. It is something we are looking at. It is something we will figure out the appropriate course of action on, and we will involve you and others in that. As you well know, the borough president had a meeting on this that I think you were involved in. There are a number of people who are focused on this. We hear it loud and clear. This is something we have to have a good answer on.
Okay, I hope that in subsequent meetings with DEP, you have some more concrete responses. I know it's a waiting game, but again, it's very frustrating for people who have been waiting for a very long time, and the responses is always, oh, we need to do another study. Oh, we need to do another study. It's like, how many studies do we need to do to really make a determination on a solution to solve the groundwater issue that we know is a problem from 30 years ago?
And if I could just add, so the commissioner mentioned these are shared aquifers with Nassau County and Suffolk County that are in a drought watch now. So it makes it difficult on the state level to get.
I know, I understand the state politics, and trust me, I intend to also hold the state accountable for figuring out a solution, which is why we had the call including state actors, so no one can point fingers because everyone's at the table. But as a city, we also have an obligation to the residents of Southeast Queens, so I just want to make sure that we truly are doing everything in our power to find a solution, hopefully before I get out of office, because like I said, it's I don't know, it might have started during the Archie Spigner days. Like, it's a very long-standing issue that we have, and we know that it's an issue. We know that it's an issue. So to continue to talk about more pilots and more studies, it's frustrating. So thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Williams. And I just have two questions, and then we're going to open it up to the public. How does the city propose to address inequities in the access to cooling centers? And is transportation provided to and from cooling centers?
I will have to get back to you on whether transportation is provided to cooling centers. My understanding is that the provision of cooling centers, their identification certainly takes socioeconomic factors into account. I know recently the controller released a report identifying some of the shortcomings, which of course we are taking very seriously, and we'll be looking to expand them. Erica, anything more to add?
Just to add that we work really closely with NYCM, who is main coordinator of the cooling centers, to make sure that they are equitably distributed and located in high heat vulnerable neighborhoods. But we can follow up with more info.
I think you guys have a lot of follow-up to do. Can we get an idea as to when we can expect to hear back all of the outstanding responses?
Councilmember, Madam Chair, I won't make a promise because, as you point out, it's a long list. Obviously, we have our colleagues who are taking
2 weeks,
notes.
1 month? I just want to have an idea.
I would imagine within a month, certainly.
Thank you. Well, I'll now kick it to our counsel, Elliot Lynn.
Thank you. We'll now turn to public testimony. Each panelist will be given 2 minutes to speak. Please begin once the sergeant has started the timer. For panelists testifying in person, please come to the dais as your name is called and wait for your turn to speak. For panelists who are testifying remotely, once your name is called, a member of our staff will unmute you, and the sergeant-at-arms will give you the go-ahead to begin on setting the timer. Please wait for the sergeant to announce that you may begin before delivering your testimony. Our first panelists will be Lonnie Portis, Courtney Worrell, and Jackson Chabot.
You may begin.
All right. Good afternoon, Committee Chair Brooks Powers and Committees on Transportation and Infrastructure, Environmental Protection, and Resiliency and Waterfronts. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on the deadly disproportionate impact on heat waves in New York City. I'm Lonnie J. Portis. I'm the Environmental Policy and Advocacy Coordinator at We Act for Environmental Justice. We Act has been the leading voice in extreme heat mitigation efforts for years. Because of climate change, New York City summers are getting hotter and the heat is lasting longer. We also know that these hotter summers have resulted in environmental injustice because 50% of heat-related deaths in New York City are Black or African American people, even though they make up only 25% of the city's populations. At the beginning of a summer, We Act released a 2022 Extreme Heat Policy Agenda, which includes policy and strategy recommendations to proactively prepare New Yorkers for rising temperatures and mitigate corresponding health risks. I'll not go through all of the policy recommendations here, but I will include a summary of them in our written testimony. Our recommendations are focused on three major areas of action: enhancing communication, awareness, and preparedness. 2, promoting and strengthening affordable cooling options. The city must promote and enroll as many New Yorkers in New York State's low-income Home Energy Assistance Program, also known as LIHEAP's cooling benefit program, and encourage the use and improve the amenities offered by New York City's Cooling Centers program, which would include outdoor cooling space. 3, increasing green space and green infrastructure. The city must prioritize installing green infrastructure in heat-vulnerable neighborhoods. Green space helps cool a neighborhood. Less green space in a neighborhood is associated with greater risk of death during heat waves. For example, of the 700 plus green roofs in New York City, over 300 lie in Midtown and downtown Manhattan, while the rest are spread throughout the city, throughout all boroughs. Again, I'll provide more detail in my written testimony. I want to thank the committee chairs for having an oversight hearing on such an important topic, and I'm looking forward to working with the City Council and the city agencies on implementing We Act's Extreme Heat Policy Agenda.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I'm Courtney Worrell. I'm the president and CEO of the Waterfront Alliance, an alliance of more than 1,100 organizations, businesses, and individuals. Thank you so much for allowing this testimony today. Our full testimony has been submitted, and for the purposes of today's hearing, I'll just read a few recommendations. There are several reports, plans, and projects that are slated to come out in the next few months, which address city infrastructure, preparedness for climate change, and other issues. We recommend that the city conduct a transparent overview of these planning efforts and reports and coordinate all of these among agencies. We know that these reports are causing great burden on some of the agencies, and we are ready to support and push for legislation that can streamline and consolidate reporting requirements. In addition to citywide comprehensive planning, we must not forget that the immense challenge of building resilience into systemic infrastructure of the city is a critical priority. For these projects, it is important that the city develop a strategic plan across agencies to leverage the historic federal and state infrastructure funding opportunities that many of which have been mentioned today. But we do believe that there is a need for the city to strategically plan for this in addition to all of the coordination between agencies that is occurring right now. The perception is that recent challenges the city has faced from flooding can be attributed to aging and poorly constructed projects. Streamlining DEP's administrative processes that lead to efficient project delivery must be prioritized as an internal climate resilience priority within agencies. I'm sorry, I did not mean to say poorly constructed projects, but instead construction delayed projects. Waterfront Alliance and our many partners are ready to stand with the city behind any impetus on green infrastructure. It's critical for the city to also develop maintenance plans for green infrastructure. Thank you for today.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jackson Chabot. I'm the Director of Public Space Advocacy at Open Plans, a nonprofit dedicated to safe and livable streets. As our climate changes, the safety and livability of our streets will increasingly depend on resilience against severe weather events. Recent heat waves underscore the escalating needs, and adaptation of our public spaces will be vital. Statistics show the danger. According to the environmental justice leader, We Act, An average of 130 New Yorkers die yearly from heat-related causes. Additionally, there were approximately 644 hospitalizations or ER visits due to extreme heat exposure in 2021. The fact that our extreme weather is deadly, especially for the most vulnerable New Yorkers. Also, according to WEACT, in part due to historical and current patterns of racial discrimination and segregation, concentrated poverty, and public and private disinvestment, populations in New York City that are already vulnerable to poor health outcomes are also overburdened with higher death and illness rates from extreme heat. Due to the same disinvestments, these communities are also some of the most car-dependent in the 5 boroughs. As a result, driving exacerbates the global climate crisis while also leading to local environmental suffering, including poor air quality and hotter streets. It's a vicious cycle. We recommend 3 immediate actions that you can read further about in my full testimony. First, we encourage the city to use sanitation reform to combat the effects of severe weather. During flash flooding, loose trash can clog storm drains and quickly flood neighborhoods. Second, we must reform the curb and reallocate street space for people-centered purposes. Asphalt attracts and traps heat. We know that blocks with trees and abundant green space are several degrees cooler than their sparse counterparts. Thank you.
Jackson, if you have more, you can finish.
I can finish?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And finally, and most consequentially, we know that vehicles and driving make our world warmer. In the United States, approximately 1/3 of our carbon emissions come from transportation. As a city, we must act now by providing incentives for people to choose other modes of transportation, such as free Omni cards for government workers, improving bus service in subway transit deserts, while also implementing congestion pricing as soon as possible and significantly reducing the number of parking placards in circulation. We need action now. We cannot wait for the next storm to exacerbate our infrastructure challenges and leave our neighbors vulnerable to extreme heat, flooding, cold, and so much more. We have the tools to adapt New York City and keep all of us safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we will hear from, and I apologize about pronunciations, Rose Usianowski, and Rose will be followed by Eric McClure and John Plenge.
Good afternoon. I'm Rose Usianowski, the Staten Island and South Brooklyn organizer for Transportation Alternatives. For nearly 50 years, TA has led the movement for safe, equitable, and healthy streets in New York City. We are advancing New York City 25 by 25. Our vision to reclaim 25% of street space from cars and give it back to people by the year 2025. To reach this vision, we must put the city's 6,300 miles of roads to better use than the movement and storage of private vehicles. Our largest public space is our streets, and cars control 75% of it. This has deadly consequences: soaring traffic violence, debilitating rates of childhood asthma, and rising temperatures that are burning our city and planet. Buildings and on-road transportation account for 84% of emissions in New York City. Yet, while New York City has made recent gains in reducing building emissions, on-road transportation emissions have actually increased in the 4 years leading up to the pandemic. Not only do cars exacerbate the climate crisis, but their effects on extreme weather make the consequences worse. 72% of New York City's land area is impervious, making extreme flash flooding more dangerous. As the remnants of Hurricane Ida swept through the city last fall, apartments flooded, subway service shut down, and streets turned into rivers. May I continue?
You have a little bit left? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Because there was no place for the water to go. We cannot combat extreme weather without combating our extreme addiction to cars on the streets. For starters, on extreme heat days, the city and street need to advise New Yorkers not to drive and offer free subway and bus trips to incentivize mass transit. But this needs to be incentivized every day. That's why we have long fought for the New York City Streets Plan. With real, reliable alternatives, New Yorkers can shift away from cars and towards more sustainable solutions. Streets should also be used to make our communities greener. Trees are nature's air conditioning. Increasing our city's tree cover by just 10% would lead to 3,800 fewer related deaths. Using street space to plant more trees is popular. A 2020 poll of New York City voters found that 83% wanted more trees and greenery, even if it meant less space for cars. When storms such as Hurricane Ida dump inches of rain on asphalt, there's nowhere for the water to be absorbed. But when rain has green spaces, the water can be managed without catastrophic flooding. Our subways don't have to turn into waterfalls with every storm, and our buses don't have to get stuck in flash floods, unable to move. Our streets do not have to trap the most vulnerable communities in urban heat islands. We have the tools to address extreme weather right now, and it starts with prioritizing people over cars on our streets. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next, we will hear from Eric McClure. Eric will be followed by John Plenge and Kleja Bega.
Time has begun.
Eric McClure. Okay, we'll move on to John Plenge.
Time has begun.
Yeah, hello. Sorry, I've been tuning in. I'm now on the street. I'm running errands today. My name is John Plenge. I have no fancy titles, and I apologize if I didn't catch all the names of all the presenters, but I appreciate you addressing the things that I am very concerned about. I am a 34-year resident of the Lower East Side in Manhattan, and I wasn't mentioned today, but Esker and the proposed Wagner Park projects for coastal resiliency, listening to the head of the DEP talk about the rising deaths in extreme heat, the main problem of water from above as opposed to flooding and hurricane surge, and the need for green infrastructure could not be more embarrassingly going in the opposite direction with Esker and the proposed project for Wagner Park. Those things were written, those projects were written with very outdated data before we had all the data on heat index and water from above. They are, yes, to protect from a superstorm. I won't get into the details of how these projects aren't really adequately addressing that either. Basically, they're taking away acres of green space, green infrastructure, and bioswales. The rest of the world is going to sponge cities along the coast, and New York City is embarrassingly, thanks to de Blasio and Councilmember Rivera, going in the opposite direction, creating hardscaping, small tree saplings that does not take into account the 6 major issues with climate change: the upper respiratory disease problems in an environmental injustice neighborhood,
the rising heat index, the loss of tree canopy, the loss of access to open green spaces.
Time is up.
This open green space along the east river park, you need to please take a look at that in an independent environmental oversight, because there's an injustice happening along the Lower East Side in Manhattan under the guise of coastal resiliency. I'm sorry. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we will hear from Kleja Bega, who will be followed by Linda Cohen.
Hello, my name is Dr. Kleja Bega. I am a longtime resident of Battery Park City and a science lecturer at Columbia University. I'm speaking here today because as a resident and a scientist, I'm very concerned that in the midst of such a need to help communities truly at risk for flooding, coastal or from rainfall, we have so-called resiliency projects that are not based on science and are just greenwashing. I fully support creating a resilient New York, and I share the same urgency as the previous speakers, but I am for smart resiliency, not for these boondoggles in the name of resiliency that are unscientific, as I will explain, wasteful, spending funds where they are not needing, and inequitable, not helping communities most at risk for flooding, as we also heard today. In particular, I want to talk about the South Battery Park Resiliency Project, which is slated to start right after Labor Day. Note that Battery Park City was built to withstand the 100-year storm, and in fact, there was very minor damage that occurred there during Sandy. Ignoring all that, this project will destroy Wagner Park, an award-winning park, reduce active green space by 50%, and cut 112 mature trees. The real aim is to maximize profit and increase commercial space. All this will be done amid strong community opposition to the planning and the design process. Let me talk a bit about the science. This project is based on numbers that are outdated, exaggerated, and incorrect. For example, to justify destroying and raising the current park by 10 feet, this project uses 213 FEMA flood maps. However, in 2016, the city of New York itself appealed and won the appeal against FEMA because, as the city analysis showed, FEMA used scientifically and technically incorrect methodology, which exaggerated the height of storm surge of the 100-year storm by at least 2 feet. These findings were further corroborated by a 2016 scientific paper, which found that Sandy was not the 100-year storm, but in fact, it was the once in 260
Time has
years.
expired.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Next, we will hear from Linda Cohen, who will be followed by Ali Ryan. Linda?
Time has begun.
Hi, am I on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
To combat climate change flooding, we need all government agencies on board working together to save and increase permeable areas, as most of these of the testimony lately has been speaking about. I think that the most sensible way to save the permeable areas that we already have, that is to save our forested areas, our wetlands, both tidal and freshwater, and all of our wetland adjacent areas. In many cases, the adjacent area is a 100-foot buffer zone. Unfortunately, permits are currently often given to destroy these areas and build on them. Oftentimes, there are promises of mitigation that don't pan out. Likewise, older trees of a certain size absorb significant amounts of flood waters, and they should be saved. There was legislation number 1749 proposed in City Council in 2019 to protect trees with a circumference greater than 50 inches. It did not pass, but I believe that it should be revisited by City Council. In the meantime, mature trees continue to be cut down. I have read doing so actually contributes to the problem of sinkholes. On Staten Island, where most of the New York State deaths from Superstorm Sandy occurred, they occurred on the east and south shore areas where wetlands and forests were previously destroyed. During Hurricane Ida, residents of Graniteville in an EJ area on the northwest coast suffered hundreds of thousands of dollars in flood damage for the first time ever. This was in an area where 18 acres of forested wetland had recently been destroyed. Why not create a blue belt here to prevent future floodings? We need to save what nature has provided us already to prevent flooding, especially our coastal wetlands, as Councilman Kagan mentioned today. Our previous controller, Stringer, wrote extensively about the financial sense of saving our
Time has expired.
Can I just finish one sentence? I hope
Yes.
that all agencies involved in the review and approval of building applications, including Region 2 of the DEC, DOT, DCP, and DEP, will work together to stop the destruction of our valuable natural resources. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we'll hear from Ali Ryan. Ali will be followed by Sonal Jessel.
Time starts.
Hello, my name's Ali Ryan. I want to thank you for holding an oversight hearing about flooding, heat waves, and potholes and extreme weather affecting our city's infrastructure. Almost 700 mature trees were chopped down in East River Park since December 2021. Earlier this month, several of my neighbors measured temperatures around the area of East River Park. The few spots of Gracie's shade were cooler. There were severe public health consequences in making our neighborhood hotter and drier, which is what has happened now that we've lost almost 700 trees. For example, on August 9th, at the track and field at 6th Street, temperatures ranged from 80 degrees in the tall, thick grass and partial shade to 157 degrees at the artificial turf field at the running track in full sun. Under the grove of mature trees in the park, it was still hot, 90 to 95 degrees, but it was cooler because that week it was 97 degrees, according to the air temperature in the city. So what can be done now? The city needs to follow through and plant and nurture trees in presently empty tree pits, as well as in our parks, specifically Tompkins Square Park, where at least 6 mature trees over a couple hundred years old have naturally fallen down in the past couple of years. The city promised to plant trees in the street tree pits, in part to make up for the inability to use East River Park. Secondly, stop chopping down trees in East River Park. In 2019, City Council negotiated to keep 42% of the park open, while
Time expired.
58% is under construction. I'd like to finish. I just have one more sentence. Right now, at the most, 30% of East River Park is open to the public. Why? Please ask my current city council members campaigning for a new job. So I'm asking you to hold the DDC and Parks Department accountable to honor the 2019 City Council negotiated 42% of East River Park open.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we will hear from Sonal Jessel, who will be followed by Carol Johnson.
Time starts.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Brooks Powers, Chair Kagan, Chair Gennaro, and other council members. Thanks for the opportunity to testify. My name is Sonal Jessel. I'm the Director of Policy at We Act for Environmental Justice, and I'm a member of the New York State Climate Justice Working Group. Over the past 34 years, We Act has been combating environmental racism. I myself have my master's in public health with a focus on climate change and health. We Act has been leading advocacy, community organizing research on extreme heat for many years. For example, we helped lead the famous Harlem heat study, which found that people's apartments and homes stay hot even when external temperature drops at night. Most Americans die from extreme heat every year than any other extreme weather event. The burden of extreme heat harms communities of color the most. And this inequity comes from decades of environmentally racist policies and programs such as redlining. We Act has a heat, health, and equity initiative to address this problem through policy. Notably, we're working on energy security for vulnerable populations, both at home and around the city, because access to cooling is the #1 preventer of heat illness and death. However, low-income households are less likely to use their AC due to high electricity bills, maintenance defects, and difficulty navigating a bureaucracy of utility companies and other programs, assistance programs. The Department of Health found that 100% of home-related heat deaths in 2018 happened to people who didn't have an AC or an AC was not turned on. Chair Kagan mentioned the New York State Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, LIHEAP. It's a vital policy for ensuring low-income residents have access to home cooling, and our organization has been working hard to improve the program. The program ended over 1 month early this year, as the chair pointed out, because funding ran out. We were cut 1 month short in getting our community members signed up for this life-saving program, and we believe the state must increase funding next year in response. Right now, we have over 400,000 customers in New York City that are experiencing crippling utility debt. Summer electricity bills spiked 20–30% because of the use of ACs mostly. And extensive research has found that utility debt leads people to forego healthy food, medication, and even more seriously, families can be barred from moving or unjustly even lose their children to social services if they have an arrearage or massive utility debt. As I mentioned before, LIHEAP is a federally funded program, and it's allocated at the state level. There's over $340 million per year for New York State, but the cooling portion only gets 4% of that allocation. I will jump ahead. What we are really asking for is council members need to advocate to Governor Hochul, to the Office of Temporary Disability Assistance, and also to our federal representatives to put more money in the cooling assistance pot for this program, because currently it does not pay for utility bills to be subsidized in the summer months. It just pays for one AC every 5 years up to an $800 value. And that, as we all know, is woefully insufficient for protecting people against heat. So I'm asking our council members to go to Governor Hochul and advocate for LIHEAP program to be expanded and to start funding utility bills for the summer months. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Carol Johnson. Carol will be followed by Simran Reki Agarwal.
Time starts.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Carol Johnson, and I'm representing the East Harlem Co-ed Community Organizations Active in Disasters. We know that East Harlem has a major problem with flooding. And we noticed too that on our eastern seaboard, there's a large accumulation of high rises, particularly NYCC housing. These people who live in these places, and we keep hearing about people getting flood insurance, these are people that pre-pandemic had to make decisions between paying their rent and feeding their families. They cannot afford flood insurance. And we've been hearing for decades and decades and decades about the work that needs to be done, restraining walls that need to be put up on the East River corridor, and we're still talking about that. We know when there's consistent flooding, that's going to lead to it's going to lead to vermin, it's going to lead to molds, and that's going to lead to more and more respiratory problems. We are a low-lying, overlooked, underserved community. We've remained as such. People keep talking about us, but the help never comes. We're asking that our governor and our government officials release funds that can help in our areas, usually the Black and brown communities. The East Harlem Community Co-ed is a group that is dedicated to emergency preparedness, resiliency, and coordinated response to all the emergencies that take place in East Harlem. The infrastructure is a horror. To watch seniors falling and tripping over broken, missing asphalt, potholes at the corners. So many blocks in East Harlem has potholes are filled with water. I don't even remember last time it rained, but the potholes are consistently filled with water, which is a danger to people who are using mobility chairs. If your chair goes down in that hole, that is a possibility of $1,000 worth of damage when it cracks your cable. And to have to go blocks and blocks and blocks to find an area that does not have water, standing water for months. It's an atrocity. Watch seniors tripping on walkers because of the broken and decimated asphalt. We're
Time has
asking
expired.
that you release, let me just finish this sentence.
You can absolutely finish.
Funds so that areas like ours that this city already knows are going to be at greater impacted by emergencies, that funds are available so that the people on the bottom are helped first, as opposed to the money going to the people on the top. Thank you very much for this time.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll hear from Simran Rekhi Agarwal, who will be followed by Paul Trust.
Time start.
Hi, instead of me, can you please unmute Anil Agarwal, my husband? He'll be speaking on behalf of us.
Okay, thank you. Noted.
Hi, this is Anil Agarwal. My wife and I wanted to bring to the committee's attention our experience in a major road defect that's ongoing that needs to be resolved and has remained unresolved for the past year. We purchased a building on 9th Street between 1st and 2nd Avenue approximately a year ago. And what we noticed was that the entire building shakes and vibrates. And it's not only our building, but it's our neighbors' buildings across the street. And those vibrations are causing very significant and serious damage to these buildings. We've had everything from roof leaks to misalignment of doors, et cetera. We're not the only ones. Our neighbors have the same issue. We've reported this to DEP, DOT. Ultimately, we contacted Carlina Rivera's office. They invited us to join this committee hearing today. It is to make you aware of, the fact that this is, a known defect. We believe it is a cave-in. It's serious enough that we think it might end up resulting in a sinkhole. This is the site of a previous sinkhole. And our experience in working with the city, which has included sharing videos and photos and doing really everything we can as good citizens to be helpful and cooperative, has really resulted in no resolution. The other thing, we live on 9th Street between 1st and 2nd Avenue, is that is a major bus route, crosstown bus route. Is also a street used by a lot of trucks. What's causing the vibration is that when these vehicles travel on the road, they do so at very high speed, and they literally bounce up and down. And that bouncing up and down of these very heavy vehicles all day long.
Time has expired.
Is what is creating the vibrations and the damage. So we want to just make the committee aware, not only of this particular defect, but also frankly, the challenges we've had in getting it resolved.
Thank you, sir. And we will have someone follow up with you after about this matter.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And last, we will hear from Paul Trust with Queens Link.
Time start.
Hello, my name is Paul Trust, and I am Advocacy Liaison for Queens Link, the proposal to reactivate the Rockaway branch as an M-Train subway extension running from Rego Park down to the Rockaways. South Queens is a transit desert with some of the longest commutes in the country. This, however, does not need to be the case. There is a 3.2-mile pre-existing right-of-way owned by the city that, through subway reactivation, will not only make South and Central Queens more resilient to the effects of climate change, but introduce a faster alternative for people to get to and from jobs, schools, visit family, and allow tourists to enjoy some of the city's best destination in a way that does not involve cars. Queenslink believes subway reactivation is the best use for this valuable city-owned transit asset, one with the greatest potential ridership. The MTA's own sketch assessments released in 2019 prove that subway reactivation is possible. The study also mentioned that where the right-of-way is wide enough, both park and trains can coexist. Knowing this, the Queenslink proposal incorporates both rails plus trails. It is our belief that if the right-of-way was used exclusively as a linear park, as some are advocating for, this would eliminate any possibility for future reactivation and would undermine our city's attempt to meet its current and future transit and climate needs. Earlier this month, Queenslink sent a letter signed by 15 lawmakers, including council members Areola, Brooks Powers, and Holden, currently in attendance, to the mayor and governor's desk requesting that an EIS be conducted on a line. The EIS will answer many questions touched upon in the MTA's sketch assessment, including addressing concerns expressed by those who live along the right-of-way. As Rockaway reactivation was included in one of the proposals under consideration in the MTA's recently released 20-year needs assessment, we feel the time is now to conduct the EIS. It is our strong belief that if $1.2 billion can be set aside for a Van Wyck expansion that will arguably do little to improve traffic flow or help New York State meet its 2030 climate goals, then setting aside $1 to $2 million to conduct an EIS is a worthwhile investment. In conclusion, although it's been 60 years of talk and little action, the time is now to make history. The desire is there, our climate challenges are real, and our population growth demands real investment in better mass transit, not just stopgap measures. We hope you will join us in our cause for advocating to the mayor and governor for the MTA to conduct an EIS in the Rockaway Beach branch. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Paul. Next, we will hear from Manny Kaufman coming out of Southeast Queens.
Time start.
Good afternoon. My name is Manny Kaufman. I've been working on environmental issues in Southeast Queens for over 20 years. I worked on such projects as the West Side Corporation Superfund site, Brooklyn Queens Aquifer Feasibility Study, and also appointed by Mayor Bloomberg to the Jamaica Bay Task Force. The rising water table is an issue that seriously need to be addressed. Climate change and increased storms, such as Hurricanes Sandy, Ida, has compounded the situation tremendously. As a matter of fact, the U.S. Geological Survey predicts that the water table will rise in Southeast Queens between 3 to 6 feet in 5 years. I'll give you a little brief history of how we got to this point. Over 100 years, Jamaica water supply from 1896 to 1996 has supplied drinking water to Southeast Queens. We had 69 groundwater wells pumping approximately 60 million gallons of water per day. In the early 2000s, the wells were shut down because of saltwater intrusion and chemical contaminations. Since that shutdown, the water table has continued to rise. As a matter of fact, former commissioner from DEP, Emily Lloyd, testified in front of City Council in 2007 that the water table had risen approximately 30 feet since the shutdown of the wells in Southeast Queens. As a result, we've had tremendous flooding in our area. Archer Parsons Subway, York College, which is pumping approximately 70,000 gallons of water per day. Allen Senior Homes, the Carter Senior Homes, Intermediate School 8, and many homes in our area have had to buy pumps and pay the increased utility bills to keep the groundwater out of their basements. DEP has been working with us trying to address these problems. As a matter of fact, one of the projects they had was Station 6, which would have pumped approximately 8 to 12 million gallons of water per day. And in pumping this particular water from that station, it would lower the water table at York College, Allen Senior Home, the Carter houses. And to me, this would be a great solution to the problem. DEP currently
Time has expired.
Okay, I will submit my statement. I will mail my statement in to the City Council. Thank you.
Mr. Kaufman, you could continue.
Oh, okay, thank you. DEP is currently contracted, working with U.S. Geological Survey to measure the groundwater throughout the city, and we thank them for that. DEP is also looking to daylight several ponds in Southeast Queens, Twin Ponds, Beaver Creek, and Baisley Pond. That would also help lower the water table. I would just like to summarize by saying that global warming, rising sea levels, climate change is something that we must seriously think about in protecting our infrastructure. The rising water table and saltwater intrusion could play havoc on our community. If you remember 150th Street, we had a sewer collapse over there. And we know what salt water does to concrete. As a matter of fact, in Florida, there was a condominium that collapsed. It's not proven, but theory is that salt water was a contributing factor where many people lost their lives because of salt water damaging their foundation. I would ask the City Council and this committee if they would seriously look at helping Southeast Queens address this problem, which is overdue. We've been dealing with this for many years. Many homes, they can't use their basements, mold infestation. So I just thank you for giving me this time to address this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll hear from Annie Carforo, and Annie will be followed by Caleb Smith.
Time start.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, committee chairs, for letting me testify today. My name is Annie Carfaro, and I'm the Climate Justice Campaign Coordinator at We Act for Environmental Justice. We have a number of team members here today talking about different issues, and I want to touch briefly on flooding. Hurricane Sandy was supposed to be a wake-up call for New York City, but since 2012, as has been repeated many a times in this hearing, there's been plenty of talk but little action. And we know that we need to be proactive when it comes to climate change, but it's abundantly clear we are not ready for what is to come. And over the past few years, we have seen New York City invest ample time and resources into understanding and planning for our flood risk. The Stormwater Management Plan, the Stormwater Resiliency Plan, New York City's Comprehensive Waterfront Plan, the New Normal Report, Cloudburst Resiliency Planning, Climate Resiliency Design Guidelines, countless pilot programs, the list goes on. This research, reporting, and planning is important as it's giving us an accurate and specific understanding of street-level flood risk across the 5 boroughs. But as Councilmember Williams said in her questioning, how many studies and pilots do we need to spend money on to look at problems we know exist before we implement solutions? Actions speak louder than words. We have enough information we need to start investing in green and resilient infrastructure to help mitigate flood impacts in the most vulnerable neighborhoods. And I want to emphasize most vulnerable because if New York City is serious about environmental justice, we cannot repeat the same inequities when it comes to investments for climate adaptations. Lower Manhattan is receiving its first floodgate, while East Harlem still does not have a completed waterfront. We've heard on this call, communities in East New York and Southeast Queens have been dealing with flooding for decades, and still little progress has been made. The lack of urgency to prioritize underinvested communities first to improve their resiliency to extreme weather events is going to worsen. That is only going to get worse is deepening climate injustice in New York City. My last point I want to make is that when we think about infrastructure in the face of extreme weather, we almost always think about physical infrastructure, but we also need to think about social infrastructure, housing security, food security, health, safety, and community. Over the past year, We Act has been working closely with community members, almost done, with community members and local emergency preparedness organizations in Northern Manhattan on a community-led planning process to help residents prepare for extreme weather events, namely extreme heat, fluvial, and coastal flooding. What is abundantly clear from this process is that investments in communities that have faced decades of disinvestment must not displace long-term tenants. Investments in social infrastructure is equally important, and City Council can champion equitable resiliency measures.
Thank you. So and for the last final few testimonies, we ask that you please adhere to the 2-minute rule. So next we will hear from Caleb Smith, followed by Jennifer Hadlock. Thank you.
Time start.
Hello, my name is Caleb Smith. I'm a Cecil Corbin Mark Fellow at We Act for Environmental Justice. Thank you for offering me a chance to speak today, and for your reference, my written testimony will go into more detail about the points in my comments. Now, while all of New York City experiences the urban heat island effect, neighborhoods like East Harlem are subject to hyper-local urban heat island effects, exposing these residents to temperatures as much as 10 degrees hotter than the city average. This is just one of the ways communities of color tangibly feel the legacy of racist policies like redlining. Fortifying vulnerable communities against extreme heat requires that the appropriate resources are poured into street trees, permeable or reflective surfaces, as well as solar, cool, and green roof installations. An equitable, fiscally responsible, and resilient New York cannot exist without ensuring frontline communities receive these long overdue investments. We cannot afford to overlook the public health, energy efficiency, quality of life, and resilience improvements that come with green infrastructure. WEACT supports current bills like Introduction 495, 574, and 420 that continue the momentum toward the uptake of these technologies. Directing infrastructure projects that make the use of these technologies to low-income neighborhoods first and foremost is not only the most equitable option, but also the most cost-effective. Research conducted by the Smart Surfaces Coalition demonstrated the cost-to-benefit ratio for implementing these technologies in low-income neighborhoods was consistently favorable across 5 cities, accounting for energy, financial incentives, stormwater, health, climate resilience, and employment benefits. Please take every opportunity to upgrade our infrastructure to prepare our communities for the increasingly deadly extreme heat to come. Thank you.
Thank you. And last, we will hear from Jennifer Hadlock.
Time start.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Hadlock. I'm a resident of El Barrio in East Harlem on Pleasant Avenue for over 12 years. I would like to support everything that Ms. Carol Johnson said earlier. I am a member of WEACT. I love the neighborhood and I worry about who will be displaced as so-called improvements happen. I have fought for better tenant protections and hope that the Council on the Environment and all those who are here today recognize the connections and need for coordination in order that the greener economy does not hurt those already most harmed, mostly poor and low-income people of color. However, I have observed the flooding in the streets here in East Harlem when it rains. The puddles sometimes stay for days, weeks. This then creates challenges for many older and disabled neighbors. Plus, in the wintertime, it freezes, it unfreezes, it refreezes, and we basically live with that for the entire season. I walk by the river almost every day, and I would love for the walkway to not have sinkholes and danger zones, blocked off areas and places that are falling off into the river. But I worry when it gets fixed, will the neighborhood change? When the Second Avenue subway comes, I am sure myself and many neighbors will use it, but at what cost to the neighborhood will it be? It seems the removal of the Pathmark grocery store on 125th Street was a beginning, when even the McDonald's now has left 125th Street, and now there's a shiny new luxury condo building there. What is coming? We need street trees, rain gardens, bioswale, green roofs, but centering always, not displacing the current residents. When I moved to the city, I purposely tried to find a place that I, as a white woman, wouldn't add to the gentrification and displacement. I chose Italian Pleasant Avenue. The mall opened the month I moved in. People feared that would completely transform things. Not all change has to mean displacement, but please be thinking about that as any of this moves forward. Thank you.
Time has expired.
Thank you. And now we will conclude today's hearing, and we thank everyone who has taken.
And if you have written testimony, please submit at testimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you.
Again, we thank everyone who took part in today's hearing on this very important issue, and we will now conclude this hearing.
Webinar ending.